Discipline is the bedrock of our operations. Her actions were a betrayal of that trust, and this humiliation serves as a stark
The
lesson
crack of
for
bone
all.
against concrete echoed through Coronado's main amphitheater like a gunshot. 300 elite operators, foreign military dignitaries, and Pentagon brass watched in absolute silence as Major General Marcus Blackburn, legendary SEAL commander with 30 years of combat experience, lay face down immobilized by a 25-year-old woman he'd just called a weak little girl. Lieutenant Junior Grade Maya Chen stood over him, her grip still locked on his arm, her expression as calm as if she were filing paperwork. The whole thing had taken 3.7 seconds. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The girl they'd all laughed at had just ended a general's career and possibly started a war.
Target acquired.
Before we continue with Maya's story, hit that subscribe button and stay until the very end to see how this plays out. Drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Now let's go back to where this all started. The morning had started normally enough. Maya arrived at the Naval Special Warfare Command at 0445, same as always. The guard at the gate barely glanced at her ID. "Morning, ma'am," he said, waving her through with the disinterested courtesy reserved for junior officers who didn't look important. Maya didn't correct him. Invisibility was her greatest asset. She parked in her assigned spot, grabbed her tablet and coffee, and walked toward the intelligence wing. The morning air off the Pacific was cool, carrying the salt spray smell she'd grown to associate with purpose. At 25, Maya had already lived 3 different lives. The first as an Olympic hopeful, the second as a naval officer, the third as something nobody in this building could know about. Her office was tucked in the corner of the 3rd floor, a windowless space with gray walls and fluorescent lights that hummed constantly. Most people would have found it depressing. Maya found it perfect. No distractions, no interruptions. Just her, the data and the patterns nobody else could see. She logged into her terminal and pulled up the files she'd been analyzing for the past 3 weeks. 8 SEAL team operations compromised over 8 months. Different teams, different theaters, different mission parameters. The only connection was timing each compromise occurred within 72 hours of mission commencement. "Chen, you in there?" She looked up to find Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison leaning against her doorframe, coffee in hand. Morrison was her official supervisor, a career intelligence officer who'd been analyzing SEAL operations since before Maya was born. "Morning, sir," she said. "Stop with the sir, makes me feel ancient." He stepped into her office and closed the door behind him. "Listen, there's something happening today you need to know about." Maya waited. Blackburn's doing one of his demonstration exercises, the big international show. Brass from 6 different countries, half the Pentagon, and every SEAL on base not currently deployed. He specifically requested tactical intelligence personnel be present. Requested or required. With Blackburn, there's no difference. Morrison's expression shifted to something like concern. "Look, you've heard the stories about him, right? Old school, aggressive, tests everyone, doesn't believe women belong in special operations." Maya recited it without emotion. "It's worse than that. He doesn't just test people, he breaks them, publicly. I've seen him reduce grown men to tears in front of their teams." Morrison hesitated. "Chen, you're brilliant at analysis, but you look young, small, female. I was going to say like an easy target, but yeah." He shifted uncomfortably. "Just stay in the background. Don't make eye contact. Don't volunteer for anything. With any luck, he won't even notice you're there." Maya nodded slowly. "When does it start?" "Oh, 900, amphitheater. Don't be late." That's another thing that sets him off. After Morrison left, Maya sat motionless for several minutes. Then she opened a different file on her terminal one that required 3 separate biometric authentications to access. Her real assignment. Her real mission. The file contained a single encrypted message from 72 hours earlier. Guardian Actual to Operative Chen. Compromise pattern suggests insider threat at Coronado. Infiltrate demonstration exercise. Assess General Blackburn as potential subject or asset. Rules of engagement. Passive observation only unless directly compromised. Maya closed the file and deleted the access log. Then she finished her coffee and prepared for what was coming. The amphitheater was built into a hillside overlooking the Pacific, a concrete semicircle that could hold 500 people comfortably. By 08:45, it was already packed. Maya found a spot in the upper rows away from the main clusters of senior officers and foreign dignitaries. She wore her standard service khakis, hair pulled back and a regulation bun tablet tucked under her arm. Invisible. She spent the next 15 minutes watching. Not the stage where Blackburn would perform, but the audience. The patterns of conversation, the body language, the subtle hierarchies that governed who stood where, who spoke to whom, who deferred, and who dominated. Her training in Guardian had taught her that information wasn't just data on screens. It was written in every human interaction, every gesture, every word choice. You just had to know how to read it. At exactly 0900, Major General Marcus Blackburn walked onto the stage. The crowd's energy shifted instantly. Conversations stopped. People straightened. Even the foreign dignitaries who didn't answer to the American chain of command seemed to feel the change in atmospheric pressure. Blackburn was 58, built like a man who'd spent his entire adult life in combat conditioning. His dress uniform carried enough ribbons to tell stories Maya could spend hours decoding. Silver hair cropped military short, face weathered by sun, wind, and decisions that had cost lives to save lives. Eyes that moved constantly, assessing, categorizing, dismissing. "Good morning," he said, his voice carrying easily without microphone assistance. "I'm General Blackburn. I've spent 30 years in naval special warfare. I've commanded SEAL teams in Afghanistan, Iraq, Somalia, and places I still can't tell you about. I've trained more operators than most of you will ever meet. And I'm here today to demonstrate why American Special Operations Forces remain the most lethal fighting force in human history." The crowd responded with polite applause. But more importantly, Blackburn continued, his tone shifting, "I'm here to demonstrate why that's changing, why we're losing our edge, why the next generation of warriors is being compromised by institutional weakness." The applause died. The atmosphere tightened. Maya leaned forward slightly. This wasn't a standard demonstration speech. "We've gotten soft," Blackburn said. "We've prioritized inclusion over excellence. We've lowered standards to meet quotas. We've confused equal opportunity with equal capability. And it's going to get people killed." A few officers in the front rows shifted uncomfortably. The foreign dignitaries watched with diplomatic neutrality. "So today I'm going to show you what I mean. I need a volunteer from the intelligence section." Blackburn's eyes swept the crowd. "Someone who represents our new priorities, our modern standards." Maya felt Morrison tense 2 rows below her. She saw him deliberately look away from Blackburn's scanning gaze, trying to make himself invisible. "You there," Blackburn said, pointing. "The girl in the 3rd row, intelligence badge. Come down here." Morrison's shoulders slumped. He turned to look back at Maya, his expression apologetic and helpless. Maya stood. Every eye in the amphitheater tracked her movement as she descended the stairs. She kept her expression neutral, her pace measured. Her training screamed warnings. This was a trap, a setup, a deliberate provocation designed to humiliate. But her orders were clear. Assess Blackburn. Determine if he was compromised or useful. She reached the stage and stood at attention. Blackburn walked slowly around her, his assessment obvious and deliberately insulting. "State your name and rank." "Lieutenant Junior Grade Maya Chen, sir." "Chen. What are you 5'4"? "Maybe 115 pounds. 5'3", sir. 118 pounds. A ripple of laughter from the crowd. Not cruel yet, but anticipatory. "And what do you do for Naval Special Warfare, Lieutenant Chen?" "Tactical intelligence analysis, sir. Mission planning and threat assessment." "Right, intelligence." Blackburn said the word like it tasted bad. "Tell me, Lieutenant, have you ever been in combat?" "No, sir." "Ever fired a weapon outside of a range?" "No, sir." "Ever conducted a tactical operation of any kind?" Maya paused for half a second. "I'm not authorized to discuss my complete service record, sir." Blackburn's eyes narrowed. "That's a no. Let me tell you what you are, Lieutenant. You're a smart kid who's good with computers. You probably got straight A's in college. You probably speak 3 languages. You're exactly the kind of person the Navy loves to recruit for intelligence work because you look good in brochures and you tick diversity boxes. The crowd was silent now. Morrison had his head in his hands. But you know what you're not, Blackburn continued. You're not a warrior. You're not an operator. You're not someone I would trust to have my back in a firefight. And this demonstration is going to prove why. He turned to address the amphitheater. This is the problem. We're putting people like Lieutenant Chen in positions of authority over special operations planning. We're asking computer analysts who've never seen combat to make life and death decisions for operators who've spent years earning their place in teams. It's backwards. It's dangerous. And it's going to be catastrophic. Maya remained at attention. Her heart rate hadn't increased. Her breathing remained steady. She'd spent 3 years in Guardian training specifically for moments like this, when emotion could compromise mission success. So here's what we're going to do, Blackburn said. I'm going to demonstrate basic close-quarters combat techniques, and Lieutenant Chen here is going to be my training partner. He smiled, and it wasn't friendly. Don't worry, Lieutenant, I'll be gentle. Someone in the crowd laughed nervously. Blackburn stepped into a fighting stance. The scenario is simple. You're an intelligence officer who's been compromised behind enemy lines. I'm the hostile force who's found you. Show me what you would do. Maya didn't move. That's an order, Lieutenant. Sir, I'm not qualified for combatives demonstrations. I should return to... You're not qualified for a lot of things, but that doesn't stop the Navy from putting you in this uniform. Blackburn's voice hardened. I gave you an order. Comply or be charged with insubordination in front of an international audience. Maya took a breath. Her mind raced through options, analyzing angles and outcomes with the speed that had made her Guardian's youngest successful graduate. Option 1. Refuse. Be humiliated. Potentially face charges. Mission compromised. Option 2. Participate passively. Take whatever Blackburn planned to demonstrate. Be used as an example of weakness. Mission possibly compromised. Option 3. Respond appropriately. Test Blackburn's actual capabilities. Determine if his aggression was genuine prejudice or sophisticated assessment. Mission advanced. Permission to proceed at full intensity, sir, Maya asked. Blackburn's smile widened. Granted. Try not to cry when you land on your ass. The crowd laughed again, louder this time. Maya set her tablet carefully on the stage floor, positioning it so its camera faced the performance area. Then she stood and faced Blackburn, her hands loose at her sides. Whenever you're ready, sir. Blackburn moved fast for a 58-year-old man. His right hand shot forward in a grab meant to secure her shoulder and pull her off balance, a standard technique for controlling a smaller opponent. It was textbook. It was obvious. And it told Maya everything she needed to know. He wasn't trying to hurt her. He was trying to control her. That meant he wasn't compromised, he was testing. So Maya let him think it worked. She stumbled slightly as his hand connected, allowing her weight to shift in the direction of his pull. Blackburn's left hand came up to complete the control position, reaching for the back of her neck. The crowd leaned forward. This was what they'd expected, the small woman completely overwhelmed by the experienced warrior. But Maya had spent 12 years studying judo before she ever joined the Navy. She'd medaled at the Olympic trials at 19. She'd learned to use momentum against opponents who outweighed her by 80 pounds. And then Guardian had taken that foundation and turned her into something else entirely. As Blackburn's left hand descended toward her neck, Maya moved. Her right arm swept up and over his extended left arm, hooking his elbow. Simultaneously, her left hand caught his right wrist. She pivoted on her right foot, dropping her center of gravity and turning her body perpendicular to his. Blackburn's forward momentum, which he'd expected to drive her backward, instead carried him past her. She yanked down on his trapped left arm while pushing up on his right wrist, inverting his balance. His feet left the ground. For a fraction of a second, a 2-star general who'd survived 30 years of combat operations hung suspended in midair, completely helpless. Then Maya drove him face first into the concrete stage. The impact was controlled. She turned his head at the last instant so his cheek took the hit instead of his nose, but the sound was sickening. Before he could recover, she'd transitioned to a joint lock. Her knee pressed between his shoulder blades, his right arm twisted behind him at an angle that made several people in the crowd gasp. Total elapsed time, 3.7 seconds. Yield, Maya asked quietly. Blackburn tried to move. The joint lock tightened microscopically. He went still. Yield, she repeated. Jesus Christ, yes, I yield. Blackburn's voice was strained more from shock than pain. Maya released him immediately and stepped back. She maintained a neutral expression, but her mind was already cataloging details. The crowd's reaction, absolute silence. Shock, some anger, some satisfaction. Morrison's expression, wide-eyed disbelief. The foreign dignitaries calculating new assessments, and Blackburn himself pushing up from the concrete, a red mark blooming on his right cheek where it had impacted the stage. For 5 seconds, nobody moved. Then Blackburn stood fully turned to face Maya and said the words that would change everything. Who the hell are you? Maya picked up her tablet. Lieutenant Junior Grade Maya Chen, sir. Tactical Intelligence Analyst. As stated. Bullshit. Blackburn stepped closer and Maya recognized the look in his eyes now. Not anger, not embarrassment. Recognition. That was Olympic-level judo combined with military close-quarters combat. That transition to the joint lock was special operations technique. You're not just an analyst. The crowd began to murmur. Maya could feel the situation accelerating beyond her control. I have training from my time before commissioning, sir, she said carefully. What time? What training? I'm not authorized to discuss my complete service record, sir. She repeated her earlier deflection. If you require additional information, you'll need to submit a formal request through appropriate channels. Blackburn's face flushed. The humiliation was setting in now, delayed by shock, but arriving with full force. He'd just been dominated in front of his peers, his subordinates, and foreign military officials by someone he'd publicly mocked as weak. You set me up, he said, his voice low and dangerous. This was a setup. No, sir. You selected me from the crowd. You designed the scenario. You authorized full-intensity engagement. Maya's voice remained even. I simply complied with your orders. Like hell you did. Blackburn took another step forward. You made me look like a fool. Sir, you made assumptions about my capabilities based on my appearance. I corrected those assumptions. That's not deception, that's education. The crowd's murmurs grew louder. Maya could see officers pulling out phones, almost certainly recording what was happening. This was spreading beyond the amphitheater in real time. Blackburn's hands clenched into fists. For a moment, Maya calculated the probability he would strike her, approximately 40% rising, as his humiliation converted to rage. She prepared 3 different responses, each calibrated to the angle and force of potential attack. But then a voice cut through the tension. General Blackburn, that's enough. Rear Admiral Christine Vance emerged from the crowd, her expression carved from ice. At 52, Vance commanded Naval Special Warfare and was one of only 3 women to achieve flag rank in the community. She was also, Maya knew from her intelligence files, in the middle of a political war with Blackburn over integration policies. Admiral, this officer, Blackburn began. This officer followed your orders and demonstrated superior combatives capability. Unless you're planning to file a complaint about being beaten in a training exercise you designed. The amphitheater went completely silent. Everyone understood what was happening. Vance was forcing Blackburn to either accept the loss or look even worse by complaining about it. Blackburn's jaw worked. Then he turned back to Maya. Dismissed, Lieutenant. Maya saluted, executed a perfect about-face, and walked toward the exit. Every step felt like it took an hour. She could feel 300 pairs of eyes tracking her movement, could imagine the conversations that would start the moment she was out of sight. But what she couldn't see was Blackburn's expression as he watched her leave. The anger was there, yes. The humiliation burned hot and fierce, but underneath something else flickered, something that looked almost like respect, or recognition, or fear. Maya made it to her office before the shaking started. She closed the door, locked it, and sat at her desk with her hands pressed flat against its surface until the adrenaline tremors passed. 3 minutes. That's all it took. Then the discipline reasserted itself, and she was back in control. Her tablet buzzed. Encrypted message. Guardian actual to Operative Chen. Incident observed via your device recording. Assessment mission parameters exceeded, but objective achieved. Blackburn now active subject. Maintain cover and await further instruction. Additional note, well done. Maya deleted the message and leaned back in her chair. She'd just assaulted a 2-star general in front of an international audience. Her career, both the public one and the secret one, should be over. Instead, Guardian was pleased, which meant this was exactly what they'd wanted to happen. A knock at her door made her sit up. Yes. It's Morrison. Let me in. She unlocked the door. Morrison slipped inside and closed it quickly behind him. What the hell was that? He demanded, though his tone was more shocked than angry. I followed his orders, sir. Chen, I told you to stay invisible. I told you not to engage. He gave me a direct order to engage at full intensity. I complied. Morrison ran his hands through his hair. Do you have any idea what you've just done? Blackburn is going to come after you. He's going to make your life hell. He's got allies in the chain of command who will protect him and destroy you. Then I'll deal with that when it happens, sir. This isn't a joke. Morrison's voice rose. You're 25 years old. You've been at this command for 8 months. You just humiliated a general who's been in special operations longer than you've been alive. They're going to eat you alive. Maya met his eyes. Sir, with respect, if I'd done what you suggested, if I'd stayed passive and let him use me as a demonstration of weakness, would that have been better? Morrison opened his mouth, closed it, then sat heavily in her spare chair. No, he admitted. It would have been worse. You'd have been a laughingstock. The girl who let herself be thrown around by the mean old general. He looked at her with new assessment. Where did you learn to fight like that? Olympic development program, sir. Judo. I competed until I was 21. Jesus. I never knew that. It wasn't relevant to my position, sir. It's relevant now. Morrison stood. Look, I don't know what happens next, but Admiral Vance stopped Blackburn from doing something stupid in public. That means she's on your side at least temporarily. If anyone from Blackburn's office contacts you, don't respond without clearing it through me first. Understood? Yes, sir. After Morrison left, Maya pulled up her analysis files again. The compromised operations, the pattern of leaks, the 72-hour window before each exposure. Her demonstration against Blackburn had accomplished one objective. It established her as someone with hidden capabilities, someone who might be worth recruiting by whoever was running the espionage operation. If they'd been watching, and Maya was certain they had been, she'd just painted a target on herself. Now she had to wait and see who took the shot. The rest of the day passed in eerie normalcy. Maya worked her analysis, attended her scheduled meetings, and ate lunch at her desk. Nobody approached her. Nobody mentioned the demonstration. It was as if the entire base had decided to pretend it hadn't happened. But the silence was deceptive. Maya could feel the pressure building, the conversations happening in offices. She couldn't access the decisions being made about her future. At 1700, as she was preparing to leave, her terminal chimed with a new message. Official Navy correspondence routed through encrypted channels from Office of the Commander Naval Special Warfare to LTJG Maya Chen. Subject meeting request time. 0730 tomorrow, location building, 12, conference room. The attendance mandatory attendees, Radham Vance, Mjen Blackburn, LTJG Chen. Maya read it twice. A private meeting with both Vance and Blackburn less than 24 hours after the incident. This was either damage control or the beginning of her formal destruction. She locked her terminal and left the building. The evening air was warm, carrying the sounds of continuing operations from the Buwood-S training compound, candidates running instructors, shouting the endless process of creating warriors from ordinary men. As she walked to her car, a figure detached from the shadows near the parking area. Lieutenant Chen. Maya's hand moved instinctively to her hip before she remembered she wasn't armed. Then she recognized the voice and forced herself to relax. Senior Chief Petty Officer Warren Hughes stepped into the light. At 46, Hughes was a SEAL legend, 23 years in special operations including time in DevGru. He was also, according to Maya's intelligence files, one of Blackburn's most loyal subordinates. "Senior Chief," Maya acknowledged neutrally. "Walk with me a minute." It wasn't really a question. They walked in silence for 20 yards before Hughes spoke again. "That was something what you did today." "I followed orders, Senior Chief." "Yeah, you did." Hughes stopped and turned to face her. "And you did it in a way that made the general look like an asshole in front of people who already think he's a dinosaur." He paused. "But you also did it without seriously hurting him." "I noticed that. That throw should have broken his nose. Instead, you turned his head and took the impact on his cheek. That joint lock could have dislocated his shoulder. Instead, you applied just enough pressure to make him yield." Maya said nothing. "So here's what I'm wondering," Hughes continued. "Are you someone who's just trying to survive in a system that's hostile to you? Or are you something else? Because the way you moved, the way you thought 3 steps ahead while he was still on step 1, that's not survival instinct. That's training." "I have judo experience, Senior Chief." "Bullshit. Judo doesn't teach you to calculate minimal necessary force while you're throwing someone. That's special operations thinking. That's how we're taught to operate in sensitive environments where lethal force creates political problems." Hughes's eyes narrowed. "So I'll ask again, Lieutenant. Who are you?" Maya met his gaze steadily. This was the moment. The test within the test. Hughes was either fishing for information on Blackburn's behalf, or he was assessing her for his own purposes. "I'm a tactical intelligence analyst with combat sports background who made a very bad decision this morning," she said. "I should have found a way to refuse the general's order without creating a confrontation. I failed to de-escalate. That's on me." Hughes studied her for a long moment. Then unexpectedly he smiled. "You know what, I believe you actually believe that. You think you screwed up by winning." He shook his head. "The general's going to have questions for you tomorrow. Real questions. My advice, tell him the truth. He respects honesty, even when it hurts." "I'll keep that in mind, Senior Chief." "One more thing." Hughes's smile faded. "There are people on this base who are going to love what you did today. They're going to want to turn you into a symbol, a poster girl for why women can do anything men can do. Don't let them use you like that. You're not a symbol. You're an officer. Act like one." He walked away before Maya could respond. She stood alone in the parking lot, processing the interaction. Hughes wasn't hostile. He wasn't threatening. He was mentoring. Warning both. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You made an impression today. We should talk. Tonight. McGinty's Bar, 2100. Come alone." Maya stared at the message. McGinty's was a Navy bar in downtown San Diego, frequented by SEAL personnel and intelligence officers. Meeting someone there after what happened would be incredibly visible, which meant either the sender wanted people to see her meeting with them, or they were testing whether she'd be stupid enough to walk into an obvious setup. She deleted the message without responding. Then, she went home, set 3 different alarms, and tried to sleep, knowing that in 12 hours, she'd be in a room with 2 flag officers who both had reasons to end her career. And somewhere on this base, someone who'd compromised 8 SEAL operations was watching her, deciding whether she was a threat or an opportunity. Maya's apartment was standard junior officer housing, a studio with basic furniture and a view of the parking lot. She'd added nothing to personalize it. No photos, no decorations, no indication that anyone actually lived there instead of just sleeping between shifts. She made a simple dinner of grilled chicken and vegetables, eating mechanically while reviewing her mental notes from the day. Every interaction, every facial expression, every word choice. Guardian training taught you to treat your own memory as a database that required constant maintenance and indexing. At 20:30, her phone rang. The caller ID showed a Virginia area code she recognized immediately. She answered on the 4th ring. "This is Chen." "Good evening, Lieutenant. Commander Sarah Reeves's voice was calm, measured the tone of someone who'd spent 20 years in intelligence operations and couldn't be surprised by anything. I assume you've had an interesting day. Yes, ma'am. Walk me through your decision-making during the demonstration. Not what happened, I saw that. Why you chose that specific response. Maya stood and began pacing a habit from childhood that helped her think. Blackburn's selection wasn't random. He scanned the crowd looking for someone who represented what he considers institutional weakness. When he found me, he created a scenario designed to prove his thesis. That women don't belong in special operations. That's the surface interpretation. But his actual thesis was more sophisticated, that we're prioritizing political correctness over combat effectiveness. He wanted to demonstrate that by putting me in a position where I would fail publicly. So you decided to disprove his thesis? No, ma'am. Maya stopped pacing. I decided to test whether his thesis was genuine prejudice or sophisticated recruitment. Silence on the line for 3 seconds. Then, explain. SEAL teams use stress testing constantly. They break candidates down to assess how they respond under pressure. BUDS Hell Week, the pool competency test. It's all designed to push people past their breaking point and see who adapts. Maya resumed pacing. Blackburn's demonstration had the same structure. Public humiliation, impossible, demands physical confrontation. He was either genuinely trying to prove I was weak, or he was testing whether I could handle that kind of pressure. And your assessment? Approximately 60% probability he was testing. 40% probability it was genuine prejudice. Either way, passive compliance would have been the wrong response. If it was genuine prejudice, I'd have been destroyed anyway. If it was testing, passive compliance would have confirmed I couldn't handle pressure. So you gambled. I assessed optimal outcome probability, ma'am. The gamble was calculated. Another pause. The meeting tomorrow, you know it's a trap, right? Yes, ma'am. Question is, whose trap? Vance wants to use me as evidence that women can succeed in special operations. Blackburn wants to either recruit me or destroy me depending on what he learns about my background. Both will push me to reveal more than I should. And your response? Minimal disclosure. Maintain cover. Use the conflict between them as deflection. Good. Reeves's tone shifted slightly, becoming almost warm. Maya, you did well today. Better than well. But you need to understand what you've set in motion. Blackburn is now a variable we can't fully control. He knows you're more than you appear. He's going to investigate. And if he digs deep enough, he might find traces of Guardian. The program's classification should prevent that, ma'am. Should. But Blackburn has 30 years of connections in the intelligence community. If he calls in favors, he might find something. Or someone might tell him something because they think it helps their own agenda. Reeves paused. I'm telling you this because you need to be prepared for the possibility that your cover gets compromised. Not by the enemy, but by people on our side who don't know we're on the same team. Maya processed that. What are my contingency protocols if that happens? Abort and exfiltrate. We'll extract you and create a new identity. But that means abandoning the investigation into the compromised operations. 8 SEAL teams have been burned. More will follow. We need to find the source. Yes, ma'am. The meeting tomorrow, use it. Push Blackburn. Make him reveal what he knows or suspects. Vance is predictable, but Blackburn is the wild card. We need to know what he's thinking. Understood, ma'am. After the call ended, Maya stood at her window looking out at the parking lot. Somewhere out there, 8 SEAL teams had walked into missions that were compromised before they began. Some had died. Others had been captured and tortured before being released in prisoner exchanges. All because someone in this command was selling intelligence to foreign services. And tomorrow she'd be in a room with 2 people who both wanted to use her for their own purposes, neither knowing that she was hunting a traitor they didn't realize existed. She set her alarms and tried to sleep. At 23:47, her phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. You didn't come to McGinty's. Smart. Maybe you're worth talking to after all. Check your office terminal tomorrow morning. Look for a file labeled Trident Analysis. Read it carefully. Then decide if you want to know the truth. Maya stared at the message until the screen went dark. Then she put the phone face down on her nightstand and closed her eyes. But she didn't sleep for a long time. Maya arrived at Building 12 at 07:15, 15 minutes early. The conference room was on the third floor, accessed through a corridor that required 2 separate security clearances. She signed in with the guard, submitted to a secondary ID check, and took the elevator up. The hallway was empty. Too empty. Most administrative buildings at this hour buzzed with activity officers arriving early. Enlisted personnel prepping for the day, the constant hum of military bureaucracy. This silence felt deliberate. Conference room A had frosted glass walls and a heavy door. Maya could see shadows moving inside, but couldn't make out details. She checked her watch. 07:17. She could wait in the hall or enter early and accept whatever psychological disadvantage that created. She knocked once and entered. Admiral Vance sat at the head of a long table reviewing something on a tablet. General Blackburn stood by the window, his back to the room, hands clasped behind him. The red mark on his cheek from yesterday had darkened to a purple bruise that would take days to fade. Neither acknowledged her entrance immediately. Another test. Maya moved to the chair at the opposite end of the table from Vance and remained standing. In the reflection of the window glass, she could see Blackburn watching her using the glass to observe without turning around. "Lieutenant Chen," Vance said without looking up. "You're early. Sit." Maya sat, keeping her posture erect, hands folded on the table in front of her. 30 seconds passed. Vance continued reading. Blackburn continued watching the window. The silence stretched, became uncomfortable, then moved past discomfort into something else. This was intentional. They were measuring her tolerance for tension. Finally, Vance set down her tablet. "General Blackburn, please join us." Blackburn turned from the window and took the seat to Vance's right, directly across from Maya. His eyes were cold, analytical. The bruise on his face drew Maya's attention despite her training. Physical evidence of what she'd done. Proof that couldn't be hidden or dismissed. "Lieutenant," Vance began, "let's establish something immediately. This is not a formal investigation. You're not being charged with anything. This is a conversation between 3 officers about an incident that requires clarification. Do you understand?" "Yes, ma'am." "Good. General Blackburn has questions. You'll answer them honestly and completely. Is that clear?" "Yes, ma'am." Vance nodded to Blackburn, ceding the floor. Blackburn leaned forward, his elbows on the table. "I've spent the last 18 hours reviewing your service record, Lieutenant Chen. It's remarkable how unremarkable it is. Bachelor's degree in computer science from UCLA. Good grades, not exceptional. Officer candidate school, middle of your class. Assignment to intelligence analysis, standard progression. No special recognition. No unusual training. Nothing that would explain what you did yesterday." Maya waited. He hadn't asked a question yet. "Except," Blackburns continued, "there's a 3-year gap in your educational history. You were at UCLA from 2016 to 2018. Then, nothing until 2021, when you suddenly reappear and finish your degree in 1 year. 3 years just missing. Where were you?" Maya had prepared for this question. Her cover story was solid, backed by documentation that would survive cursory investigation. "I took a leave of absence for personal reasons, sir. Family issues that required my attention." "What family?" "Your parents died in a car accident when you were 19. You're an only child. No aunts, uncles, or cousins in the United States. So what family issues?" "I prefer not to discuss personal matters, sir." Blackburn's jaw tightened. "This isn't a request, Lieutenant. I'm ordering you to explain that gap." Maya met his eyes. "Sir, my academic records are complete and available through official channels. My service record is unblemished. If you're questioning my security clearance, that's a matter for naval intelligence, not command authority." "I'm questioning your honesty," Blackburn shot back. "You're hiding something. That gap in your record, your combat training that's not documented anywhere, your ability to assess and counter my attack in under 4 seconds, none of that matches the story of a computer science student who joined the Navy for a stable career." Vance cleared her throat. "General, we're straying from the point." "The point is she's not who she claims to be," Blackburn said, not taking his eyes off Maya. and I want to know who she really is before we make any decisions about her future. My identity isn't in question, Maya said calmly. What's in question is whether my response yesterday was appropriate. I believe it was. You gave me a direct order to engage at full intensity. I complied. If you're unhappy with the result, that's a training issue, not a disciplinary one. The temperature in the room dropped about 20 degrees. Blackburn's face flushed. You're saying I'm poorly trained. I'm saying you made assumptions based on incomplete information. That's a common training deficiency, especially among officers with extensive experience in a single operational environment. You've spent 30 years working with SEAL teams. Everyone you encounter in that context meets certain physical and psychological standards. When you encounter someone outside those parameters, your assessment protocols become less reliable. Jesus Christ, Blackburn muttered. She's lecturing me on operational psychology. Vance raised a hand. Lieutenant Chen, that's enough. General Blackburn's training isn't under review here. Yours is. She pulled up something on her tablet. I've received 3 formal requests this morning. 2 from officers who want you removed from this command immediately. 1 from Senator Davidson's office asking for a complete investigation into gender discrimination in special operations training with you as Exhibit A. Do you understand what you've created? Yes, ma'am, a political problem. More than that, you've weaponized yourself. Both sides of a very sensitive debate now want to use you to prove their position. The people who support integration see you as proof that women can compete with male operators. The people who oppose integration see you as a dangerous anomaly who got lucky and will get someone killed in a real operation. Maya absorbed that. What do you see me as, ma'am? Vance's expression remained neutral. I see you as an unknown variable that I need to understand before external pressure forces my hand. So I'm going to ask you directly, and I expect a direct answer. Are you part of some kind of special program that I don't know about? The question hung in the air like a live grenade. Maya's mind raced through decision trees. Vance wasn't asking idly. She suspected something, which meant someone had briefed her or she'd made her own inquiries and hit classification walls that made her suspicious. I'm assigned to tactical intelligence analysis under the command of Lieutenant Commander Morrison, Maya said carefully. That's my only current program assignment. That's not what I asked. It's the only answer I'm authorized to provide, ma'am. Blackburn slammed his hand on the table. There it is again. Not authorized. Every time we get close to a real answer, you hide behind classification. Who the hell authorized you? What program? What training? Sir, if I were part of a classified program, discussing it with someone who isn't cleared for that information would be a federal crime. I can't confirm or deny things I'm not authorized to discuss. But you're not denying it, Vance observed. Maya said nothing. Vance and Blackburn exchanged a look. Some silent communication passed between them, a momentary alliance despite their obvious antagonism. All right, Vance said. New approach. Let's talk about yesterday. Walk me through your decision-making. The general grabbed your shoulder. What happened next? Maya organized her thoughts. He executed a standard control technique, right hand on shoulder, pulling me off balance, preparing to follow with a neck control using his left hand. The technique assumes the target will resist the initial pull, which creates leverage for the follow-up. I didn't resist. I redirected. Explain redirecting, Vance said. Instead of fighting against his pull, I moved with it. That eliminated his leverage. When his left hand came toward my neck, I intercepted at the elbow and wrist. From there, it was basic judo use momentum against the opponent. His own forward energy became the force that took him down. Basic judo, Blackburn repeated. What you did wasn't basic anything. That was sophisticated close-quarters combat. That joint lock you applied is taught to special operations personnel for prisoner control in hostile environments. Where did you learn it? I can't discuss my complete training history, sir. Can't or won't. Both, sir. Blackburn stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. This is bullshit. Admiral, with respect, she's playing us. Every answer is carefully calibrated to reveal nothing while sounding compliant. That's interrogation resistance training. That's what we teach operators who might be captured. Sit down, General, Vance said quietly. No, I want to know who authorized putting someone with Black Ops training into an analyst position on my base without informing the command structure. That's a security violation. That's your base. Vance's voice cut like a blade. This is Naval Special Warfare Command General. It's not your personal fiefdom. And if there are classified programs operating here that you're not read into, that's not a security violation, that's compartmentalization working as designed. Blackburn turned to stare at her. You knew. Before this meeting, you knew she was something else. I suspected. After yesterday, I made inquiries. I was told very politely to mind my own business by people who outrank both of us. Vance looked at Maya. Which tells me Lieutenant Chen is connected to something that makes flag officers nervous. So I'm going to ask you one question, Lieutenant, and I want you to think very carefully before you answer. Is your presence at this command related to operational security? Are you investigating something? Maya felt the walls closing in. Vance had just asked the exact right question in the exact right way. A direct lie would be discoverable. An admission would compromise the mission. Silence would be its own answer. Ma'am, I'm not authorized to discuss operational matters outside my chain of command. Who is your chain of command? Blackburn demanded. Morrison. He's your supervisor, but who's above him? Who do you really report to? I'm not authorized to answer that question, sir. Blackburn's laugh was harsh. Unbelievable. We've got a junior officer running an unauthorized operation on a special warfare base, and she's citing classification to avoid accountability. This is exactly what's wrong with the intelligence community. Zero oversight. Zero transparency. General, Vance said, her voice hardening, you're dangerously close to accusing Lieutenant Chen of criminal activity without evidence. If you have proof she's violated any regulation or law, present it. Otherwise, these accusations need to stop. I have proof she assaulted a superior officer. You ordered her to engage in combat training at full intensity. That's not assault, that's following orders. Unless you want to file a formal complaint that you were unable to defend yourself in the training scenario you designed. The silence that followed was absolute. Vance had just made the same calculation Maya had. Blackburn couldn't complain without admitting defeat, and admitting defeat would destroy whatever remained of his credibility. No, Blackburn finally said. No formal complaint. Then we're done here. Vance closed her tablet. Lieutenant Chen, you're dismissed. Return to your duties. Consider this matter closed. Maya stood saluted and headed for the door. One more thing, Blackburn said. Maya stopped but didn't turn around. I'm going to find out who you are, what you're really doing here. And when I do, we're going to have this conversation again, without Admiral Vance protecting you. Maya turned to face him. Sir, I'm not asking for protection. I'm asking to do my job. If that job eventually requires me to brief you on matters currently above your clearance level, I'll do so when authorized. Until then, I'll continue following my orders. Same as you. She left before he could respond. The hallway felt like a pressure chamber releasing. Maya walked steadily to the elevator, pressed the button, and waited. Her heart was racing, but her hands remained steady. Training held. The elevator door opened. Morrison stood inside, his expression grim. Get in, he said quietly. Maya entered. Morrison pressed the button for the basement level, the secure facilities that required additional clearance. What are you doing? Maya asked. Something I should have done yesterday. Come on. The elevator descended past the ground floor, past the first basement level, stopping at B2. The doors opened onto a corridor Maya had never accessed before. Morrison led her through 2 security checkpoints, each requiring biometric authentication, until they reached a door marked only with a number 247. Morrison pressed his palm to the scanner. The door opened into a small, secure conference room. No windows, no electronics except for a secure terminal built into the table. Sit, Morrison said. Maya sat. Morrison remained standing, pacing. I need to tell you something, and you're going to listen without interrupting. Can you do that? Yes, sir. 8 months ago, I was approached by someone from Naval Intelligence. They told me they needed to place an analyst at this command. Someone young, skilled, but not obviously exceptional. Someone who could disappear into the routine of intelligence work while conducting a separate investigation. They told me this person would be monitoring communication patterns looking for evidence of compromised operations. Maya's pulse quickened, but she kept her expression neutral. They told me this person would have a cover identity as a standard analyst. They told me I was to supervise this person, provide normal assignments, and under no circumstances ask questions about any secondary tasking. They told me that if I agreed, I'd be read into a program called Guardian. Morrison stopped pacing and looked directly at Maya. They never told me the analyst they were sending would be you. They never told me you had advanced combat training. They never told me you'd end up on a stage taking down a 2-star general in front of half the base. So, here's my question, Lieutenant Chen. What the hell else haven't they told me? Maya processed rapidly. Morrison wasn't supposed to know this much. His read into Guardian should have been minimal, just enough to provide administrative cover without understanding the program's scope. Someone had told him more than protocol allowed. Sir, who briefed you on Guardian? Does it matter? Yes, sir. Protocol for program awareness is strict. If someone outside the normal chain briefed you, that's a security breach. Morrison pulled out his phone and scrolled through messages. He turned the screen to face Maya. An email from a Navy address she recognized, Commander Sarah Reeves. She sent me this at 0600 this morning, Morrison said. It authorizes me to discuss Guardian with you directly. It also informs me that your cover may be compromised and that I'm to provide whatever operational support you need. So I'm providing it. Talk to me. Tell me what's really happening. Maya read the email twice. The authentication codes were correct. Reeves had escalated Morrison's clearance, which meant the situation had deteriorated faster than anticipated. We have a leak, Maya said. Someone at this command is providing operational intelligence to foreign services. 8 SEAL team operations have been compromised in the past 8 months. Different teams, different missions, but the pattern is consistent. Someone with access to pre-deployment intelligence is selling it. Morrison sat down heavily. Jesus. Who? Unknown. That's what I'm trying to determine. The leak has access to classified mission parameters, deployment schedules, and tactical plans. That suggests someone in intelligence logistics or command staff. Blackburn. Possible, but unlikely. The compromises began before he arrived at this command. Also, his financial records show no irregularities. If he was being paid by foreign services, there would be traces. Then why did Guardian want you to assess him yesterday? Maya hesitated. Because the leak might be recruiting. Looking for people who are disaffected, angry, or vulnerable. Blackburn fits a profile. He's openly hostile to current policies. He's approaching retirement. He's been passed over for positions he wanted. He could be a target for recruitment. Or he could be an asset for identifying the leak. His opposition to integration policies makes him toxic to most people in the intelligence community. But that same opposition gives him credibility with certain groups. If the leak is ideologically motivated rather than financially motivated, Blackburn might be able to identify them. Morrison absorbed that. That's why you engaged him yesterday. You were forcing him to make a choice. Either he'd protect his pride and come after you, proving he's compromised by ego, or he'd adapt and recognize you as an asset, proving he's still mission-focused. Yes, sir. Which one did he choose? Still unclear. His anger seems genuine, but so does his curiosity. He's investigating me, which means he's thinking strategically despite the humiliation. That's promising. Morrison rubbed his face. Chen, do you understand how dangerous this is? If there's really a leak at this level, and if that person realizes you're investigating, you're a target. Not a professional target, a lethal one. These people don't get caught and face court-martial. They disappear, or they arrange for you to disappear. I know, sir. Because you're 25 years old and you're hunting someone who's successfully evaded detection for 8 months while operating inside one of the most secure military installations in the world. The odds aren't in your favor. The odds never are, sir. That's why Guardian exists, to handle situations where normal investigative procedures would fail. Morrison stared at her. How long have you been with Guardian? I'm not authorized to discuss my service history with the program, sir. Right, classification. He stood again, resumed pacing. Okay, here's what I know. You received a message this morning telling you to check your terminal for a file labeled Trident Analysis. Don't ask me how I know I have monitoring protocols on all analyst terminals for security purposes. Did you access that file? Maya's mind went cold. No, sir. I came directly to the meeting with Admiral Vance and General Blackburn. I haven't been to my office. Good. Don't access it from your terminal. Whatever that file contains, it's bait. Someone wants to see if you'll take it, which means they're watching your account activity. Can you access it from a secure terminal without triggering alerts? Morrison considered. Maybe. It depends on how sophisticated their monitoring is. But Chen, think about this. Someone sent you that message because they know you're investigating. They know you're looking for intelligence leaks. This file is either proof they want you to have, or it's a trap designed to compromise you. Or both, Maya said. If the file contains genuine intelligence about the leak, but accessing it creates a digital trail that makes me look like the leak that's elegant. They expose the investigation and frame the investigator simultaneously. Exactly. So we don't access it directly. We need to bring in specialists from... Morrison's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen and his face went white. What? Maya asked. There's been an incident. SEAL Team 7 deployed to the Persian Gulf. Their position was compromised approximately 2 hours ago. They're under attack. Casualties reported. Maya felt ice form in her chest. That's the 9th compromise. No, Morrison said, looking up from his phone. According to this, their mission parameters were only finalized yesterday afternoon. Whoever leaked this information had access to intelligence less than 24 hours old. That's not someone stealing files and passing them to handlers. That's real-time access. Which means the leak is in this building right now, active, monitoring current operations. Morrison and Maya locked eyes, the same realization hitting them simultaneously. The meeting this morning, Maya said. Vance and Blackburn both had tablets with classified information. If someone has access to their devices or to the secure conference room network, they'd know about your investigation. They'd know Vance suspects something. They'd know your guardian. Morrison grabbed her arm. Chen, you need to leave. Right now. Extraction protocols. Get out of... The lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in after 3 seconds, bathing the room in dim red illumination. Morrison's phone showed no signal. The secure terminal was dark. Power failure, Maya asked, though she knew it wasn't. Building 12 has backup generators. They should have activated instantly. Morrison moved to the door and tried the handle. Locked. He pressed his palm to the scanner. Nothing. We're sealed in. Maya pulled out her phone. No signal. She moved to the far corner of the room where emergency communication equipment should be mounted. The panel was there, but when she opened it, the radio inside had been removed. Recently, she could see fresh scratches where someone had forced the mounting brackets. Someone planned this, she said. They isolated us deliberately. Who knows you're in this room? Reeves. Maybe Vance and Blackburn if they're monitoring building access logs, and whoever's been watching my investigation. Morrison tried the door again, putting his shoulder into it. It didn't budge. These doors are designed to contain breaches. They won't open without power to the magnetic locks, and they won't break. We're trapped until someone realizes we're missing. How long until someone realizes, I'm due at a briefing at 0900, that's 45 minutes. You don't have any scheduled meetings, so nobody would miss you until end of day. Maya moved to the table and sat down, forcing herself to think through the adrenaline. This isn't random. Someone knows I'm investigating. They know Morrison is helping me. They've locked us down to buy time. Time for what? To either finish whatever they're doing with the SEAL Team 7 intelligence, or to clean up evidence, or to... Maya stopped. Or to frame us. If they've isolated us in a secure facility, they can plant evidence in our offices, our terminals, our communications. When they discover us locked in here, they'll find proof that we're the leaks. Morrison's expression shifted from fear to calculation. That's actually brilliant. Frame the people investigating the leak as the leaks themselves. We'd be arrested, investigated, and by the time anyone figured out we were innocent, the real leak would be long gone. So we need to get out of here before that happens. Chen, I just told you these doors are unbreakable. Maya walked the perimeter of the room, running her hands along the walls. Every secure facility has emergency egress. Fire codes require it. There has to be a way out that doesn't depend on electronic locks. She found it in the far corner, hidden behind a wall panel, a ventilation shaft. The grate was secured with 4 screws, but Morrison had a multi-tool on his belt. Within 2 minutes, they had the grate removed. The shaft was narrow, maybe 20 inches wide. Maya looked at Morrison, then at the opening. Morrison was 6 feet tall and built like someone who'd spent 20 years staying fit. He'd never fit. "You need to go," Morrison said, reading her thoughts. "Get to your office. Download everything you can from your terminal to an external drive. Then get to Guardian Command and report what's happening." "I'm not leaving you here, sir." "That's an order, Lieutenant. Someone needs to report this. If we're both trapped when they spring whatever trap they're planning, Guardian loses the whole investigation. Go." Maya wanted to argue, but training overrode emotion. Morrison was right. Mission completion required someone escape. She pulled herself into the ventilation shaft. It was tight, claustrophobic, and after 6 feet, she couldn't turn around. She had to crawl forward, trusting that it would lead somewhere useful. Behind her, she heard Morrison replacing the grate, hiding the evidence of her escape. The shaft ran horizontal for about 20 feet, then angled upward at a steep incline. Maya braced her feet against the walls and climbed, her muscles burning with the effort. The metal was cold and the air was stale. After what felt like hours, but was probably 5 minutes, she reached another grate. Through the slats, she could see a hallway. Empty. She pushed on the grate. It didn't move. She pushed harder, using her shoulder. Something gave way with a sharp crack, and the grate fell outward, clattering on the floor. Maya pulled herself out and found herself on the first basement level, 2 corridors away from the main elevator bank. She was covered in dust, her uniform disheveled, but she was out. She moved quickly toward the stairs, avoiding the elevators. If someone was monitoring building systems, they'd see elevator usage. The stairs required a key card, but Maya's clearance worked. She climbed to the 3rd floor, moved down the corridor to her office, and found her door already open. Someone was inside. Maya flattened against the wall beside the door, listening. She could hear movement, papers, rustling drawers, opening and closing. Someone searching her office. She had 2 choices, retreat and report, or engage and identify who was setting her up. Training said retreat. Instinct said identify. Maya stepped into the doorway. Rebecca Thornton stood at Maya's desk, a USB drive in her hand, frozen mid-motion as she turned to face the door. For 3 seconds, neither woman moved. Then Rebecca's expression shifted from shock to something calculating. "Lieutenant Chen," she said calmly, "I was just looking for you. We need to talk." Maya's hand moved instinctively to her hip before remembering she wasn't armed. Rebecca noticed the motion and smiled slightly, the expression never reaching her eyes. "Reflexes," Rebecca said. "Interesting for an analyst." "Step away from my desk," Maya said evenly. Rebecca held up the USB drive. "This, I was delivering it, not stealing it. Commander Reeves asked me to drop it off. Said it contained updated threat assessments you'd requested. Commander Reeves doesn't use civilian contractors for classified deliveries." "No, she doesn't, which should tell you something." Rebecca set the drive on the desk carefully. "I'm going to be very direct, Lieutenant Chen. You're in danger, real danger, and you have about 10 minutes to decide whether you trust me or not." Maya stayed in the doorway, blocking the only exit. "Why were my drawers open?" "Because I was checking for surveillance devices. Found 2. Rebecca pointed to the desk lamp and the phone. "Audio pickups, military grade, transmitting on encrypted frequencies. Someone's been monitoring everything you say in this office for at least the past week." Maya's mind raced. If that was true, then every conversation with Morrison, every phone call, every keystroke had been compromised. But Rebecca could also be lying, creating a plausible reason for being caught in the act. "Who are you really?" Maya asked. "Rebecca Thornton, 52, former Naval Intelligence Officer, currently Logistics Coordinator for Special Operations Supply Chain. Also, as of 3 months ago, an asset for the same people you work for. Guardian recruited me to help identify the leak you're hunting." "Prove it." Rebecca pulled out her phone and opened an encrypted app. She turned the screen to face Maya. Authentication codes scrolled across the display, followed by a message, "Asset. Thornton confirmed. Operative Chen authorized for contact." The codes were correct. Maya had memorized them during training, But codes could be stolen. Phones could be compromised. If you're Guardian, why wasn't I briefed? Maya demanded. Because I'm burned. My ex-husband is Marcus Blackburn. When Guardian approached me, I told them I couldn't operate anywhere near him without arousing suspicion. They agreed. I was supposed to work remotely feeding them supply chain data. Then the leak accelerated and they needed someone on site. Rebecca's expression hardened. So they sent you. Young, smart, invisible. Perfect cover. Except you weren't as invisible as they thought. The demonstration yesterday announced to everyone on this base that you're not a standard analyst. Whoever's running the leak operation noticed. They've been scrambling ever since trying to figure out who you are and what you know. Maya processed quickly. Morrison and I were locked in a secure room. Power cut communications dead. You did that? No, that was them. I managed to restore partial power to the building, which is why you were able to escape through the ventilation system, but they'll notice within minutes that you're not where they left you. Who are they? Rebecca moved to the window, keeping her body angled so she could see both Maya and the corridor outside. That's complicated. The leak isn't one person. It's a network. At least 3 people at this command, maybe more. They've been operating for over a year, compromising operations and selling intelligence to Chinese military intelligence. You have proof. Some. Not enough for prosecution. That's why Guardian needed you inside. They needed someone who could access the intelligence analysis systems without raising flags. Someone who could track the data patterns and identify how information was moving from classified networks to foreign handlers. Maya took 3 steps into the room, keeping distance between herself and Rebecca. If you're really Guardian, tell me something only someone in the program would know. Your handler is Commander Sarah Reeves. She recruited you from an Olympic training program after you medaled in judo. Your Guardian designation is Operative 47. Your activation phrase is, "The Eagle lands at midnight." You've been operational for 3 years, and this is your 4th assignment. Rebecca's eyes never left Maya's face. You have a scar on your left shoulder from a training accident in your 2nd year. You broke your collarbone during close quarters combat certification. Want me to keep going? Maya's jaw tightened. That information was classified above top secret. Either Rebecca was legitimate, or the entire Guardian program had been compromised at the highest levels. Why are you here right now? Maya asked. Because I tracked the signal from your office surveillance devices. They terminate at a relay station in Building 7, which is general administration. Someone there is monitoring multiple offices yours. Morrison's 3 other intelligence analysts, and 2 logistics officers. I was coming to remove the devices and warn you when I saw you crawling out of a ventilation shaft, like something from a spy movie. Why didn't you identify yourself earlier, before yesterday? Rebecca's expression showed something like regret. Because my orders were to stay hidden unless you were compromised. Guardian doesn't like assets knowing about each other. Compartmentalization. But after you took down my ex-husband in front of half the Pacific Fleet, compartmentalization became a luxury we couldn't afford. Maya moved to her computer terminal and logged in. Her access was still active. She pulled up her analysis files on the compromised operations, then opened a secondary screen showing building access logs. Building 7, she said. Who has office space there? Mostly administrative staff. Personnel records, supply coordination, facility management. Nothing that should require access to classified operational intelligence. Maya's fingers moved rapidly across the keyboard, pulling up cross-referenced data. But someone in Building 7 has been accessing JWIC's terminals, the classified network. Unauthorized access using stolen credentials. The pattern started 13 months ago, right after... She stopped staring at the screen. After what Rebecca prompted. After Blackburn's ex-wife was denied a promotion and transferred to logistics coordination. Maya looked up. Rebecca, what was your security clearance when you were active duty intelligence? TSSCI with special access programs, same as any senior intelligence officer. And when you transferred to civilian contractor status? Rebecca's face went pale. They downgraded me to secret, standard procedure for contractors, but my old credentials were never fully deactivated. They're supposed to be, but bureaucracy moves slow, and sometimes accounts just linger in the system. Someone's using your credentials, Maya said. Your old intelligence access. They've been logging in as you pulling classified operational data and nobody questioned it because the system shows your account as dormant, not deleted. It's the perfect cover. If anyone noticed the access, they'd assume it was legacy system errors, not active espionage. Rebecca moved to the desk, reading over Maya's shoulder. Son of a bitch. They've been framing me from the start, building a paper trail that makes it look like I'm the leak. You are the leak, said a voice from the doorway. Or you will be when we're done. Both women spun. Commander Nathan Cross stood in the hallway, a pistol held casually at his side. At 44 Cross was the Deputy Operations Officer for Naval Special Warfare, responsible for coordinating mission planning across multiple SEAL teams. He was also, according to Maya's analysis, one of 7 people with sufficient access to compromise all 8 previous operations. Commander Cross, Maya said, her voice steady despite the weapon. I wasn't aware you had business in the intelligence section. I don't. I have business with you. Cross stepped into the office and closed the door behind him. Both of you. Been quite a morning, hasn't it, Lieutenant Chen, escaping from a secure room that should have held her until we finished preparing the evidence. Ms. Thornton playing spy instead of sticking to her actual job. Everyone making my life more complicated than it needs to be. Rebecca's posture shifted subtly, weight moving to the balls of her feet. Maya recognized the preparation for combat engagement and tensed in response. Cross saw both reactions and smiled. Don't, he said simply. I'm not alone. If either of you moves aggressively, my associate outside starts shooting through the door. These are interior walls, not armor. You'll be dead before you take 2 steps. Maya calculated angles, distances, probabilities. Cross was 10 feet away, gun hand relaxed but ready. Even with her speed, even with Rebecca's help, they'd never reach him before he fired. And if there was really someone in the hallway with another weapon, any aggressive action was suicide. What do you want? Maya asked. Information. Then your silence. In that order. Cross moved to the guest chair and sat, the gun now resting on his knee, still pointed in their general direction. I'm curious about something, Lieutenant. How did Guardian know to send someone? What triggered the investigation? The compromised operations, Maya said. 8 teams burned in 8 months. Pattern analysis indicated insider threat. Right, but 8 operations out of how many total hundreds? The statistical deviation isn't that significant. Missions fail for lots of reasons. So why did someone decide this particular pattern meant espionage instead of bad luck or enemy competence? Maya said nothing. Cross nodded as if she'd confirmed something. You don't know. They didn't tell you. Guardian sent you in blind, probably told you to look for patterns and report back. Classic intelligence operation. But here's what you missed. Those 8 operations weren't random. They were selected. Selected how? Rebecca asked. By me and my associates. We compromised operations that we knew would trigger investigations. We wanted Guardian to send someone. We wanted to identify their operatives, understand their methods, and ultimately dismantle the program that's been interfering with our business for the past 5 years. Maya felt cold realization spreading through her chest. We're the real targets. The leak investigation was bait. Exactly. And you both bit hard. Chen, you showed up with your analyst cover and started poking around just like we expected. Thornton Guardian activated you as backup, also predictable. Now we have 2 Guardian assets identified, isolated, and about to be thoroughly discredited. Discredited how? Maya asked, though she already knew. The evidence is already planted. Your terminals, your communications, your financial records, everything points to you both selling intelligence to Chinese handlers. By end of business today, NCIS will have an airtight case. You'll be arrested, investigated, and convicted. Guardian will be exposed as a failed program that couldn't protect its own operatives. And the actual intelligence sharing operation continues uninterrupted under new protocols. Rebecca's voice was cold. You're willing to let SEAL teams die just to maintain your operation. They're not dying, Cross said, sounding almost offended. We're selective about what we share. Enough to maintain our credibility with our buyers, not enough to actually get people killed. Team 7 this morning. They'll be fine. We gave the Chinese their general location, but not their specific coordinates or egress routes. They'll face some hostile contact, maybe a firefight, but they'll extract successfully. It looks like compromise, but it's actually controlled release. Controlled release of classified tactical intelligence, Maya said. That's still treason. Treason is a legal term for people who get caught. We're not getting caught, you are. Cross checked his watch. In about 4 minutes, building security is going to respond to an alarm from this office. They'll find you two having destroyed evidence and preparing to flee. They'll find the surveillance devices Thornton mentioned, which we installed specifically to record your conversations about selling intelligence. They'll find financial transfers in your names to accounts in Hong Kong. It's over. Maya's mind raced through options. 3 minutes. Not enough time to escape the building. Not enough time to contact Reeves or Guardian. Not enough time to prove their innocence. But maybe enough time to get truth recorded somewhere it couldn't be deleted. Her tablet, still active on the desk behind her, its camera facing the room. If she could activate the recording function without Cross noticing, "Don't even think about it," Cross said, following her gaze. "I disabled all your devices remotely before I came up. Nothing in this office is recording. Nothing is transmitting. You're completely isolated." "Then why are you telling us all this?" Rebecca asked. "Why not just let the security teams find us without explaining?" Cross's smile was almost sad. "Professional courtesy. You're both skilled operatives who got played by someone better. You deserve to know how thoroughly you lost before it's over. Consider it a learning opportunity for your next career, probably as federal inmates." "And if we fight?" Maya asked. "If we don't go quietly, then people die. My associate in the hallway is authorized to use lethal force if you resist. Building security has been told you're armed and dangerous suspects in an espionage investigation. If shooting starts, they'll put you down without hesitation. So you can die here, or you can surrender and spend the rest of your lives in prison. Your choice." Maya looked at Rebecca. Something passed between them, some unspoken communication born of training and desperation. They were out of time, out of options, and out of moves that didn't end in death or imprisonment. Except one. "I have a third option," Maya said. Cross raised an eyebrow. "Really? Please enlighten me. We already recorded this conversation. Before you came in. Before you allegedly disabled our devices." Maya's voice was steady, certain. "Rebecca's phone. The one she used to show me Guardian authentication. It's been streaming encrypted video to Guardian commands since the moment she entered this office. Everything you just said about selecting operations controlled, releases framing us, it's all documented." Cross's expression didn't change, but his gun hand tensed. "You're bluffing." "Am I, Rebecca? What's the authentication code for emergency transmission protocol?" Rebecca didn't hesitate. "Tango 7, Charlie 9. Continuous stream 30-second delay for encryption direct upload to Guardian servers." She pulled out her phone and held it up. The screen showed an active connection upload progress bar moving steadily. "You just confessed to espionage, Commander. On a recording that's already in Guardian's hands. Even if you kill us right now, the evidence survives." Cross stood abruptly, his composure cracking for the first time. "That's not possible. I monitored all network traffic in this building. There's been no unusual data transmission." "That's because Guardian doesn't use standard networks," Maya said. "We have dedicated satellite uplinks that bypass all local infrastructure. You were monitoring the wrong systems." For 5 seconds, Cross stared at them, his mind visibly racing through implications. Then, his expression hardened into something dangerous. "Doesn't matter," he said. "If that recording exists, I destroy it at the source. Both of you on the ground. Now." "There's a problem with that plan," said a new voice. Everyone turned. Admiral Vance stood in the doorway, flanked by 4 armed Naval Criminal Investigative Service agents. Her weapon was drawn, pointed directly at Cross. "Commander Cross, lower your weapon and place it on the floor. You're under arrest for espionage, unauthorized disclosure of classified information, and attempted assault on federal officers." Cross's face went through a rapid series of calculations. Then slowly, he placed his gun on the floor and raised his hands. "Admiral," he said calmly, "I have no idea what these two told you, but they're the ones under investigation. I was attempting to detain them until security arrived." "Is that why you just confessed to selecting which operations to compromise, to running controlled intelligence releases to Chinese military? Because that seems like an odd thing to say while detaining suspects." Vance stepped into the office, her agents moving to secure Cross. "We've been monitoring this room for the past 20 minutes, Commander. Every word you said was recorded and transmitted to my office in real time." Cross's expression finally broke shock and rage mixing with disbelief. That's impossible. I disabled all surveillance in this room. You disabled the devices you knew about, Vance said. The ones you and your associates installed. But you missed the one Guardian installed 2 days ago after Lieutenant Chen filed a preliminary report suggesting possible insider threat. She gestured to the smoke detector on the ceiling. Military-grade surveillance, completely undetectable to standard countermeasures. One of the NCIS agents secured Cross's hands behind his back with zip ties. Cross looked at Maya, his expression venomous. How long, he demanded. How long have you known? I suspected after the third compromised operation, Maya said. But I couldn't prove it. You were careful professional. You used Thornton's credentials, you varied your access patterns, you never took more than was necessary. The only mistake you made was being too perfect. No analyst is that careful unless they're hiding something. The demonstration yesterday, Cross said, understanding dawning. You weren't just responding to Blackburn. You were putting on a show, making yourself visible, drawing attention. I was testing theories. If the leak was opportunistic, someone just stealing information they happened to access, then my profile wouldn't change anything. But if the leak was strategic part of a larger operation, then suddenly having a Guardian operative exposed would force a response. You'd either try to recruit me, frame me, or eliminate me. Any of those actions would reveal the network. And I did exactly what you wanted, Cross said bitterly. I came after you directly instead of staying hidden. You didn't have a choice, Rebecca added. Once Maya escaped from the secure room where you'd trapped Morrison, your timeline collapsed. You had to move immediately or risk everything falling apart. That desperation made you sloppy. Vance gestured and her agents escorted Cross toward the door. He didn't resist, but his eyes never left Maya's face. You're good, he said. Better than I expected. But this doesn't end with me, Chen. I'm not the top of this network. I'm middle management. The people above me won't stop just because you caught one operative. They'll come for you eventually, and next time you won't see them coming. The agents removed him from the office. Vance holstered her weapon and looked at Maya and Rebecca. Are either of you injured? No, ma'am, Maya said. Rebecca shook her head. Good. Thornton, you're being pulled from this assignment. Guardian wants you in protective custody until we've dismantled the rest of Cross's network. An escort is waiting downstairs. Vance turned to Maya. Chen, we need to debrief. Everything that happened this morning, every detail. But first, there's someone who wants to speak with you. General Blackburn stepped into the doorway. The bruise on his face had darkened to deep purple, making him look even more weathered than usual. His expression was unreadable. Lieutenant, he said, walk with me. It wasn't a request. Maya looked at Vance, who nodded permission. Maya followed Blackburn out of the office, down the corridor, and into an empty briefing room. He closed the door behind them and stood for a moment without speaking, his back to her. Finally, he turned around. I owe you an apology, he said. Several, actually. For yesterday. For this morning. For assuming you were something you're not. Sir, you don't. Let me finish. Blackburn's voice was quiet but firm. When I saw you in that amphitheater, I saw someone who didn't fit my expectation of what a warrior looks like. Young, small female. Everything I've spent my career believing doesn't belong in special operations. So I tested you publicly and harshly because I wanted to prove my beliefs were correct. He moved to the window looking out over the base. Instead, you proved me wrong in about 4 seconds. And then instead of being angry or vindictive, you did your job. You investigated a threat that everyone else missed. You identified a traitor in our command structure. You risked your career and your life to protect operations and save lives. That's what a warrior does, Lieutenant. Not fitting into some physical profile I've built in my head. Maya remained at attention, unsure how to respond. Blackburn turned back to face her. Admiral Vance briefed me this morning after you left our meeting. She told me what Guardian is, what you are. She also told me that my public aggression toward you yesterday actually helped your investigation by making you visible to Cross's network. I inadvertently assisted a counterintelligence operation by being an asshole. That's going to be an interesting footnote in my career. Sir, you didn't know. You were operating with incomplete information. That's not an excuse. It's an explanation. There's a difference. Blackburn stepped closer. I'm being reassigned. Not as punishment, but as opportunity. The Navy is creating a new training program, Cognitive Warfare Integration for Special Operations. They want someone with operational experience to run it, someone who understands traditional warfare but can adapt to new threats. Admiral Vance recommended me. I accepted. Maya processed that. That's excellent, sir. You'll be very effective in that role. I hope so, because you're going to help me build it. Blackburn's expression showed something that might have been respect. After you finish cleaning up this mess with Cross's network, Guardian is loaning you to my program. 6 months developing curriculum and training protocols. You'll teach operators how to think like intelligence analysts. I'll teach them how to think like warriors. Together, maybe we create something that combines both. Sir, I'm honored, but I'm not sure I'm qualified to. You took down a 2-star general in front of an international audience, then caught a spy that everyone else missed all before lunch. I think you're qualified. Blackburn extended his hand. What do you say, Lieutenant? Are you willing to work with an old dinosaur who's trying to adapt? Maya looked at his hand, then at his face. The bruise, the weathered lines, the eyes that had seen 3 decades of warfare and were now looking at her with something that might have been hope. She took his hand. Yes, sir. I'd be honored. They shook, and Maya realized that something had shifted, not just between them, but in the larger structure they both served. The Navy was changing, adapting, recognizing that modern warfare required different capabilities and different warriors. And despite his resistance, despite his initial hostility, Blackburn was changing with it. Good, Blackburn said. Now get back to Vance and finish your debrief. We've got a spy network to dismantle and a program to build. No time to waste. Maya saluted. Blackburn returned it crisply. As Maya reached the door, he called after her. Chen. She turned. That throw yesterday, the one that put me on my face. Where did you really learn that? Maya smiled slightly. Olympic training program, sir, just like my file says. Sometimes the truth is exactly what it appears to be. Yeah, Blackburn said, shaking his head. Sometimes it is. And sometimes I'm too old and stubborn to see it until it's on top of me. Literally. Maya left the room and headed back toward the intelligence section. Her phone buzzed with an encrypted message from Reeves. Well done, 47. Phase 1 complete. Prepare for Phase 2. Briefing at 1600. Phase 2. There was always a Phase 2. Maya deleted the message and quickened her pace. Morrison was still trapped in that secure room Rebecca was being extracted. Cross was in custody, but claiming there were others above him in the network. The investigation wasn't over. It was just beginning. But for the first time since arriving at this command 8 months ago, Maya felt like she was working with allies instead of through enemies. Vance, Morrison, Rebecca, even Blackburn. They were all pieces of a larger team now, united against a threat that crossed traditional boundaries. As she walked, Maya's training automatically cataloged details, filed information, prepared for the next crisis. Because there would be a next crisis. Cross had been right about one thing. This network was bigger than one man. Someone higher up had orchestrated this operation, someone with resources and access that made Cross look like a minor player. And whoever that person was, they now knew that Guardian was hunting them. The real war, Maya realized, was just starting. Everything until now had been reconnaissance. What came next would be the actual battle conducted in shadows, fought with information instead of bullets, won or lost, based on who could see the patterns first. Maya reached Vance's office and knocked once before entering. The Admiral looked up from her terminal, her expression grim. Lieutenant Chen, sit down. We have a lot to discuss and not much time to discuss it. Maya sat. Cross is talking, Vance said. Not a full confession, but he's trading information for consideration. He's given us 3 names. 2 logistics officers and 1 communications technician. All 3 have been detained. But he insists there's a 4th person, someone with flag officer access, who's actually running the operation. Maya leaned forward. Did he identify them? No. He says he's never met them, only received encrypted instructions through dead drops and secure channels. But he gave us something else. Vance turned her tablet to face Maya. This. The screen showed a photograph. A man in his 60s, civilian clothes, standing outside what looked like a coffee shop in downtown San Diego. The quality was poor, taken from distance with telephoto lens, but the face was clear enough. "Do you know who that is?" Vance asked. Maya studied the image, running facial recognition in her mind against every person she'd encountered or researched during this investigation. Then recognition hit like cold water. "That's David Reeves," she said slowly. "Commander Reeves's husband. He's former CIA, retired 8 years ago." Vance nodded grimly. "Cross claims Reeves is the network architect, that he's been using his wife's guardian position to identify targets for compromise and operatives for elimination. According to Cross, everything we've caught so far, the surveillance, the frame-up attempts, even parts of this investigation was orchestrated by Reeves to identify and destroy Guardian from the inside." Maya felt the floor drop out from under her world. Commander Sarah Reeves had recruited her into Guardian, had trained her, had sent her on 4 successful missions over 3 years. The idea that Reeves's own husband was running a counter-operation designed to destroy everything they'd built. "That's impossible," Maya said. "Commander Reeves would have noticed. She would have seen the pattern." "Unless she's in on it," Vance said quietly. "Or unless he's so good at compartmentalization that even someone living with him couldn't see what he was doing." She closed the tablet. "We've contacted FBI counterintelligence. They're initiating surveillance on both Reeves immediately. But Chen here's the problem. If Commander Reeves is compromised either as a collaborator or as an unwitting asset, then everything Guardian has been doing is potentially exposed, including you." Maya processed the implications. If David Reeves had access to his wife's intelligence files, he knew every Guardian operative, every mission, every protocol. He could unravel the entire program from the inside. "What are my orders, ma'am?" Vance stood and walked to the window. "Officially, you're to maintain your cover and await further instructions from Guardian Command. Unofficially." She turned back to Maya. "Watch your back. Trust no one. And if you get any communications from Commander Reeves, any orders, any instructions, verify them through me before acting. Because if she's compromised, even something that looks routine could be a trap." "Yes, ma'am." Maya left Vance's office with her mind spinning through scenarios, possibilities, threats. 8 months of investigation had just become infinitely more complicated. Cross was middle management. David Reeves was the architect. Commander Sarah Reeves was either a traitor or a victim. And Maya was caught in the center of it all, wondering if anyone she'd trusted was actually trustworthy. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Reeves' situation evolving. Maintain radio silence until contacted. Trust no one. Maya stared at the message. Was it genuine advice from a handler who just learned her husband was a traitor? Or was it a strategic move by someone trying to isolate their target? She had no way to know. She deleted the message and kept walking. Maya made it 3 steps down the corridor before her phone rang. Not a text. An actual call. The caller ID showed Commander Reeves. Maya stopped walking. Every instinct screamed at her not to answer. Vance had just warned her that Reeves might be compromised. The message to maintain radio silence could have been strategic misdirection. Answering this call could be exactly what David Reeves wanted: confirmation that his wife's asset was still operational and accessible. But not answering would also send a message. If Reeves was genuinely trying to protect her, ignoring the call would leave Maya isolated and vulnerable. She answered on the 4th ring. "This is Chen." "Don't say anything." Reeves's voice was tight, strained. "Just listen. I have approximately 90 seconds before this call is traced. My husband is David Reeves, former CIA. He's the one running the network that compromised the SEAL operations. I didn't know. I swear to God, Maya, I didn't know." Maya's throat tightened. The raw emotion in Reeves's voice sounded genuine, but skilled operatives could fake anything. "Cross gave FBI my husband's name 30 minutes ago." Reeves continued, speaking rapidly. "Federal agents showed up at my house 20 minutes ago. David was gone. His office was cleaned out. His laptop files, everything gone. He left me a note. It said, 'I'm sorry, but it was always necessary.' That's all. 18 years of marriage and I get 5 words. Commander." I said, "Don't talk. They're monitoring everything. FBI thinks I'm complicit. They're building a case." My career is over, Maya. Guardian is compromised. Everything we built, every operative we recruited, every mission we ran, he had access to all of it. He's been inside our operation for years, and I never saw it. Silence for 3 seconds. Maya could hear Reeves breathing, could imagine her standing somewhere with federal agents watching, recording, preparing to arrest her the moment they had sufficient evidence. I need you to do something, Reeves said, her voice dropping lower. There's a safety deposit box at Pacific Coast Bank, downtown San Diego. Box 847. The key is in my desk drawer at Guardian Command, taped under the bottom. In that box are files. Physical files, not digital. Evidence I've been collecting for the past 6 months without knowing what I was collecting. I thought I was documenting program effectiveness for budget reviews. But looking back now, I realize I was documenting vulnerabilities, points of entry, ways to compromise Guardian from inside. Why are you telling me this? Because those files also contain something David didn't know about. Insurance. Every Guardian operative keeps a secondary contact protocol, someone outside the program who can be reached if the command structure is compromised. Mine is in that box. His name is Alexander Hunt, former DIA. He'll know what to do with the evidence. He'll know how to protect you and the other operatives. Maya heard voices in the background on Reeves's end. Official tones, sharp commands. They're coming, Reeves said. Maya, I'm sorry. For recruiting you. For exposing you to this. For being too blind to see what was happening in my own house. But you need to move fast. David knows you're the one who broke Cross. He knows you're a threat, and he has resources you can't imagine. Get those files. Contact Hunt. Stay alive. That's an order. That's enough. The call disconnected. Maya stood in the empty corridor, her mind racing. Everything Reeves had just said could be true. Or it could be an elaborate trap designed to get Maya to retrieve files that would either incriminate her or lead David Reeves directly to her location. She needed verification. She needed someone she could trust who had the resources to check Reeves's story against actual facts. She needed Blackburn. Maya found him in the operations center, standing over a table covered with tactical maps and mission reports. Senior Chief Hughes was with him, along with 3 other SEAL operators Maya recognized but didn't know personally. They were discussing something in low voices when Maya entered. Blackburn looked up. Lieutenant, I thought you'd be in debrief with Vance for hours. I need to speak with you privately, sir, immediately. Something in Maya's tone made Blackburn straighten. He nodded to Hughes. Give us the room. The SEALs filed out without question. Once the door closed, Maya told Blackburn everything. The call from Reeves, the safety deposit box, the secondary contact protocol, David Reeves's disappearance. Blackburn listened without interrupting. When Maya finished, he was quiet for several seconds. Do you believe her? He finally asked. I don't know, sir. She sounded genuine, but I can't afford to trust my instincts on this. Too much is riding on making the right call. Then we verify. Blackburn pulled out his phone and made a call. This is General Blackburn. I need to speak with FBI SAC Morrison Counterintelligence Division. Yes, I'll hold. He covered the phone. If Reeves was arrested or detained, FBI will have record of it. If she's lying about federal involvement, that tells us something else. 2 minutes passed, then Blackburn's expression shifted. SAC Morrison, I need confirmation on the status of a subject in your investigation. Commander Sarah Reeves, United States Navy. Is she currently in custody or under surveillance? He listened. I understand. Thank you. He ended the call and looked at Maya. Reeves is under house arrest. Federal agents detained her 40 minutes ago. They're executing search warrants on her home office and Guardian Command facility. Her husband is wanted for questioning but hasn't been located. Maya felt something loosen in her chest. At least that part of Reeves's story checked out. The safety deposit box, Blackburn continued. That's more complicated. If we go get those files, we could be walking into a trap. If we don't, and they actually contain evidence that could protect Guardian operatives, we're leaving assets exposed. I have to go, Maya said. Those files could identify the remaining members of David Reeves's network. They could show us how deep the compromise goes. I can't leave that intelligence uncollected. You also can't walk into a bank in downtown San Diego to access a safety deposit box without creating a digital trail that anyone monitoring the system could follow. The moment you use your credentials, David Reeves will know exactly where you are. Maya considered that. Then I need to access it without using my credentials. How? By using Rebecca Thornton's. She's still technically a Guardian asset. Her credentials would be flagged if someone was monitoring, but the flag would point to her, not me. And she's currently in protective custody, which means using her identity creates an alibi she couldn't have accessed the box personally. Blackburn shook his head slowly. That's identity fraud. If you get caught, I can't protect you. With respect, sir, I don't need protection. I need those files. They stared at each other for a long moment. Then Blackburn pulled out his phone again and sent a text. 20 seconds later, his phone buzzed with a response. Thornton agrees, he said. She's sending her credentials to a secure number. You'll have them in 5 minutes. He moved closer. Chen, if this goes wrong, if David Reeves has people waiting at that bank, you'll be on your own. I can't send backup without alerting FBI, and if FBI gets involved, they'll lock down everything while they investigate. You'll lose the window. Understood, sir? I'm serious. David Reeves spent 20 years in CIA field operations. He knows every play, every countermove, every way to turn an asset's strength into a weakness. You're walking into his game without knowing the rules. Then I'll have to learn quickly, sir. Blackburn's expression showed something between respect and concern. You're either incredibly brave or incredibly reckless. I haven't decided which yet. Can't it be both, sir? Despite everything, Blackburn almost smiled. Get the files. Get out. Report back within 2 hours or I'm calling in every favor I have to find you. Clear. Clear, sir. Maya left the operations center and headed for her car. Her phone buzzed with Rebecca's credentials, a photo ID, account numbers, security codes. Everything needed to access the safety deposit box without triggering alerts tied to Maya's identity. The drive to downtown San Diego took 30 minutes through afternoon traffic. Maya spent the time analyzing approach vectors, exit strategies, and probability assessments. Pacific Coast Bank was a mid-sized regional institution with moderate security, cameras at entrance and exit, armed guard in the lobby, electronic access logs for the safety deposit box area. All standard, all manageable, unless David Reeves had people inside waiting. Maya parked 3 blocks away and walked the rest of the distance using reflections in storefront windows to check for surveillance. Nobody followed. At least nobody she could detect. The bank lobby was quiet. 2 tellers, 1 customer, the armed guard reading something on his phone. Maya approached the customer service desk where a young woman with a name tag reading Jennifer looked up with professional courtesy. How can I help you? I need to access a safety deposit box. Maya handed over Rebecca's credentials. Jennifer scanned the ID typed information into her terminal and nodded. Box 847. I'll need you to sign in here. Maya signed Rebecca's name matching the signature from the sample on the ID. Her hand didn't shake. 3 years of Guardian training included document forgery and identity assumption. She'd practiced thousands of signatures. Rebecca's was actually one of the easier ones. Follow me, please. Jennifer led Maya through a secure door down a corridor lined with safety deposit boxes. She used a key to open the outer lock on box 847, then stepped back. You'll need your key for the inner lock. Take your time. Press the button by the door when you're finished. Jennifer left. Maya was alone in the corridor with hundreds of steel boxes and one specific target. She pulled out the key Reeves had mentioned retrieved from Guardian Command by Morrison during his own escape from the secure room and inserted it into the inner lock. The box slid open. Inside were 3 folders. Paper files exactly as Reeves had described. Maya pulled them out and quickly scanned the contents. The first folder contained operational summaries for every Guardian mission over the past 3 years. Success rates, methodology, asset deployment. Everything someone would need to understand how Guardian operated. The second folder contained personnel files. Every operative, every handler, every support asset. Names, backgrounds, assignments. A complete roster of people whose identities were supposed to be classified above top secret. The third folder was different. Thicker. Heavier. Maya opened it and felt her blood turn cold. Financial records. Bank transfers. Shell corporations. Money moving from Chinese intelligence services through a web of intermediaries, eventually landing in accounts connected to David Reeves, Commander Cross, and 8 other people. But what made Maya's hands shake was the last page. A single sheet with a list of names and dates. Operations that had been compromised. Next to each operation was a notation completed pending or planned. There were 5 planned operations, future compromises that David Reeves intended to execute, and the first one on the list was scheduled for tonight. USS Ronald Reagan. Deployment brief, 1900 hours. Compromised via communications intercept. Maya checked her watch, 16:45. She had just over 2 hours before a carrier strike group's entire deployment plan would be exposed to foreign intelligence. She photographed every page with her phone, using the encrypted camera app that sent copies directly to secure Guardian servers. Then she closed the folders, locked the box, and pressed the button. Jennifer returned with the same professional smile. "Find everything you needed?" "Yes, thank you." Maya walked through the bank lobby, out the door, and 3 steps onto the sidewalk before someone grabbed her arm. She spun hand, moving to defend, and found herself facing a man in his 60s. Gray hair, weathered face, cold eyes that measured and dismissed her in one glance. He wore casual civilian clothes but carried himself with the unmistakable bearing of someone who'd spent a lifetime in dangerous places. "Ms. Thornton," he said quietly. "Or should I call you Lieutenant Chen? Walk with me. Don't make a scene. I have 3 people in the area who will open fire on the crowd if you run. I don't want collateral damage, but I will accept it if necessary." Maya's mind raced. This was David Reeves. Had to be. The timing, the location, the knowledge of both her real identity and the false credentials she'd used, it all confirmed what Blackburn had warned about. She'd walked straight into his trap. "You're David Reeves," she said. "Very good. Your handler trained you well. My wife always had an eye for talent." He gestured toward a coffee shop across the street. "Let's talk somewhere more comfortable. You have questions. I have answers. And we have limited time before this situation deteriorates further." Maya assessed escape options. She could fight, but his claim about armed backup was probably accurate. She could run, but that risked civilian casualties. Or she could play along, gather intelligence, and find an opening later. "After you," she said. They crossed the street and entered a coffee shop. Reeves selected a table in the back corner with sightlines to both entrance and exit. Professional positioning. Maya sat across from him, keeping her hands visible on the table. "You're wondering if I'm going to kill you," Reeves said. "The answer is no. You're more valuable alive." "Valuable how?" "As a message, as proof that Guardian can be compromised, as demonstration that even the most carefully trained operative can be outmaneuvered by someone with better information and resources." He ordered coffee from a passing server without looking away from Maya. "My wife recruited you 3 years ago. Olympic judo medalist, brilliant analytical mind, no family attachments. Perfect candidate for deep cover operations. She trained you personally, didn't she?" Maya said nothing. "Of course she did. Sarah always invested heavily in her assets. That's why Guardian was so effective for so long. She created loyalty through personal connection." Reeves leaned back. "But personal connection is also weakness, because loyalty makes people predictable, and predictable people can be manipulated." "Is that what you did, manipulate your wife?" "I provided her with information. She drew her own conclusions. For 18 years, I never lied to her about who I was or what I believed. She knew I thought Guardian was dangerous, a program with insufficient oversight running operations that bypassed normal intelligence protocols. She just didn't know I was actively working to dismantle it. By getting SEAL teams killed." Reeves's expression hardened. "Nobody died. That's the lie Sarah and her people keep telling to justify their program. Yes, operations were compromised. Yes, missions failed. But I was selective. I shared enough intelligence to maintain my credibility with Chinese handlers without actually causing casualties. Every compromised operation had contingency plans. Every team extracted safely. Check the records." Maya thought back through the mission reports she'd analyzed. He was right. 8 compromised operations, 0 fatalities. Multiple wounded, several captures, followed by prisoner exchanges, but no deaths. At the time, she'd attributed it to skilled operators adapting to unexpected opposition. But if the compromises were calculated, "You're wondering if I'm telling the truth," Reeves said. "Here's how you verify. Ask yourself why Commander Cross confessed so quickly, why he gave up names and evidence without significant pressure. Because I told him to. I needed Guardian exposed, but I needed it exposed in a controlled way that would let me extract my network before federal prosecution began. Cross's confession was choreographed. The evidence he provided was selected. Everything that's happened since yesterday morning has been according to a plan I set in motion months ago, including framing your wife." For the first time, emotion flickered across Reeves's face. Regret, maybe. Or the simulation of regret by someone skilled at manipulation. Sarah was collateral damage. Necessary but regrettable. She's brilliant, dedicated, and utterly convinced that Guardian's mission justifies its methods. She would never have voluntarily dismantled the program. So I forced the situation. I made her the obvious suspect, knowing federal investigators would focus on her while I disappeared. By the time they realize she's innocent, the program will be exposed. The operatives will be identified, and congressional oversight will dismantle what remains. You destroyed your wife's career to make a political point. I destroyed an unconstitutional intelligence program that operated without proper oversight. Sarah's career was unfortunate collateral damage, but she'll survive. She always does. Reeves's coffee arrived. He took a sip before continuing. "Now, let's discuss why you're here. You accessed that safety deposit box thinking you were collecting evidence to protect Guardian. Instead, you collected exactly what I wanted you to have." Maya felt cold realization spreading through her chest. "Those files are authentic," Reeves continued. "The financial records, the operational plans, the list of future compromises, all real. But they're also incomplete. What you photographed and sent to Guardian servers was specifically curated intelligence designed to make you look like the leak. Your encrypted transmission, I've been monitoring Guardian communication protocols for 2 years. That upload went exactly where I wanted it to go, to a server that's already been seized by FBI as part of their investigation into Sarah. When agents analyze that server, they'll find your transmission containing classified information that you had no authorization to access. They'll find financial records showing transfers to accounts that can be traced back to you through shell corporations I established months ago. And they'll find a communication trail showing you coordinating with Commander Cross. That's impossible. I never communicated with Cross except during his confession." Not impossible, just requires manipulation of metadata. Timestamp sender addresses, encryption keys, all can be altered if you know the right techniques, which I do courtesy of 20 years in CIA technical operations. Reeves set down his coffee. "Lieutenant Chen, you've been expertly framed. Within 6 hours, federal agents will have a warrant for your arrest. Admiral Vance can't protect you because the evidence is digital irrefutable and time-stamped. General Blackburn can't protect you because he has no jurisdiction over federal investigations. Even Guardian can't protect you because the program itself is under investigation, and any attempt to shield you will look like obstruction." Maya's mind raced through scenarios looking for exits and finding none. If Reeves was telling the truth, if he'd really orchestrated evidence this thoroughly, then she was trapped. Fighting would accomplish nothing. Running would confirm guilt. Her only option was information. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you to understand how completely you've lost. I want you to carry that knowledge into federal custody. And when you're sitting in an interrogation room facing career destruction and possibly prison, I want you to remember that this happened because Guardian existed in the first place. Programs like this, operating in shadows without oversight, create vulnerability. I'm exposing that vulnerability. You're the demonstration." "And the USS Reagan compromise, the deployment brief that's happening tonight." Reeves smiled. "That's the interesting part. There is no Reagan compromise. That was false information included in the files specifically to test whether you'd take action, which you will because you're a dedicated operative who can't help but respond to threats. You'll either try to warn the Reagan's command, which creates another digital trail linking you to unauthorized disclosure of classified information, or you'll try to stop the compromise yourself, which puts you in proximity to evidence I've already planted. Either way, you confirm your guilt. Maya felt the trap closing completely. Every move she could make would tighten the noose. So what now? She asked quietly. Now you have a choice. Option 1, you run. Try to disappear, use your guardian training to create a new identity and fade away. I'll find you eventually, but you might get a few months of freedom before federal marshals show up. Option 2, you turn yourself in. Cooperate with investigators, hope that eventually the truth comes out. You'll spend years in legal limbo, but you'll be alive and possibly vindicated. Option 3. There's a third option. There's always a third option. You work for me. Maya stared at him. Reeves leaned forward, his voice dropping. You're skilled, intelligent, and now thoroughly compromised. I can make the evidence against you disappear. I can create new documentation showing you were working undercover to expose Cross's network. I can turn you from suspect into hero. All you have to do is continue your guardian operations, but report to me instead of to Sarah. You become my asset inside whatever replaces Guardian after congressional oversight finishes with it. You want me to be a double agent. I want you to be practical. Guardian is finished. Sarah will face federal charges even if she's eventually exonerated. The program will be disbanded or absorbed into existing intelligence structures with proper oversight. You can either go down with that sinking ship or you can adapt and survive. I'm offering you survival. Maya looked at him across the table, this man who'd destroyed his wife's career, compromised military operations, and trapped her in an impossible situation. She thought about Commander Reeves in federal custody, about the other Guardian operatives, whose identities were now exposed, about everything that had been built and was now collapsing. Then she smiled. You made a mistake, she said. Reeves's expression didn't change. Really? Please enlighten me. You assumed I transmitted those files to Guardian servers, but I didn't. I transmitted them to a personal archive that only I can access. The actual upload to Guardian servers won't happen until I manually authorize it, which means all that carefully curated false evidence you mentioned, it's sitting in my encrypted storage, not in FBI's hands. You just told me your entire plan gave me proof of your methodology and confirmed your identity, all while thinking I'd already made the mistake you wanted me to make. Reeves's face went still. Then slowly he started laughing. Outstanding. Sarah trained you better than I thought. You're absolutely right. I assumed Guardian protocols required immediate upload. I didn't account for personal discretion in transmission. He stood still, smiling. Well played, Lieutenant, but you're still trapped. Even if that specific evidence isn't in FBI hands yet, there are other trails, other documentation. I've been building this case for months. One setback doesn't undo all of it. Maybe not. But it gives me time to warn people. Time to build a defense. Time to find the holes in your operation that you don't know exist yet. Perhaps. Or perhaps you're just postponing the inevitable. Reeves dropped cash on the table for the coffee. I'm leaving now. You can try to stop me, but I have resources positioned throughout this area. You can try to follow me, but I've been evading surveillance since before you were born. Or you can use the time I'm giving you to figure out your next move. Choose wisely, Lieutenant. The clock is running. He walked out of the coffee shop without looking back. Maya sat frozen for 10 seconds, processing everything that had just happened. Then she pulled out her phone and called Blackburn. I have the files, she said when he answered, but we have a much bigger problem than I thought. Blackburn arrived at the coffee shop in 12 minutes with Senior Chief Hughes and 2 other SEALs Maya didn't recognize. They cleared the area with practiced efficiency, checking exits and sight lines, while Blackburn sat across from Maya in the same chair David Reeves had occupied minutes earlier. Talk, Blackburn said. Maya told him everything. The meeting with Reeves. The confession about orchestrating the entire investigation. The frame-up using falsified evidence. The revelation that Commander Reeves was innocent collateral damage. The offer to become a double agent. When she finished, Blackburn was quiet for several seconds. Hughes stood nearby, his expression carved from stone. He just walked away, Hughes finally asked. After confessing everything he just left. He thinks he's already won, Maya said. He believes the evidence against me is solid enough that my testimony about our conversation won't matter. One person's word against carefully constructed documentation. Is he right? Blackburn asked. Maya pulled out her phone and opened the encrypted storage where she'd actually sent the photographed files. He would be, except he made an assumption about Guardian protocols. He assumed I'd transmit evidence immediately to command servers. He built his frame up around that assumption. But I didn't transmit to command, I sent everything to personal archive first. Which means the false evidence he planted isn't in FBI hands yet. We have a window. How long? Hours, maybe less. Once Reeves realizes his timeline is compromised, he'll accelerate whatever contingency plans he has. We need to move now. Blackburn pulled out his phone and made a call. Admiral Vance Blackburn, I need an emergency meeting with you and the FBI agent in charge of the Reeves investigation. No, not tomorrow, right now. Because we're about to hand you the actual architect of this espionage network, and I need guarantees that Lieutenant Chen won't be arrested in the process. He listened for a moment. 30 minutes. Conference room building 12, we'll be there. He ended the call and looked at Maya. You're about to bet your career and possibly your freedom on the hope that FBI will believe your story over digital evidence. You sure about this? No, sir, but running or hiding just confirms Reeves's narrative. The only way forward is through. All right then. Blackburn stood. Hughes, get your team. I want eyes on every exit from this location. If Reeves is still in the area, I want him found. Chen, you're with me. We need to prepare for the hardest briefing of your life. The drive back to base took 20 minutes. Maya spent the time organizing her thoughts, structuring her testimony, preparing for questions she knew would be hostile and skeptical. Everything she had was circumstantial. A conversation in a coffee shop with no witnesses, no recording, just her word, against a carefully constructed frame-up. The conference room was crowded when they arrived. Admiral Vance sat at the head of the table. FBI Special Agent Linda Morrison, no relation to Lieutenant Commander Morrison, occupied the seat to her right, flanked by two other agents. A Navy JAG officer Maya didn't recognize sat to Vance's left. And at the far end of the table, looking smaller and more exhausted than Maya had ever seen her, sat Commander Sarah Reeves, still technically under house arrest, but apparently granted temporary release for this meeting. Maya met Reeves's eyes across the table. The older woman's expression was complicated guilt, hope, fear, and something that might have been pride, all mixed together. Lieutenant Chen, Agent Morrison said without preamble. Sit down. You have 15 minutes to convince me why I shouldn't execute the arrest warrant that's currently being processed for you. Maya sat. Blackburn remained standing behind her, a silent show of support. David Reeves is the architect of the espionage network you're investigating, Maya began. Commander Cross, the logistics officers, the communications technician, they're all part of his operation. He's been running this network for over a year using his wife's Guardian access to identify vulnerabilities and targets, while simultaneously building evidence to frame her as the leak. We know that, Morrison said impatiently. Commander Reeves has been providing similar information for the past 2 hours. What I want to know is why evidence keeps appearing that suggests you're part of that network. Because David Reeves has been framing me specifically. He used my investigation as an opportunity to plant false documentation that would make me look like the leak while he escaped. I met with him 90 minutes ago. He confessed everything. Morrison's expression didn't change. You met with a fugitive wanted for espionage and didn't immediately report it. I'm reporting it now, ma'am. After having time to coordinate your story with Commander Reeves. How convenient. Morrison opened a folder. Here's what I have, Lieutenant. Digital forensics showing you accessed classified files without authorization. Financial records showing transfers to accounts linked to your identity. Communication logs showing coordination with Commander Cross before his arrest. And a transmission from earlier today where you uploaded classified information from a safety deposit box to an unknown server. That's enough for multiple federal charges. All of that evidence was planted by David Reeves, Maya said. He told me exactly how he did it. Falsified metadata shell corporations created months ago fabricated communication trails. He's CIA trained. This is what he does. or it's what actually happened and you're lying to avoid prosecution. Morrison closed the folder. Lieutenant, I've been doing this for 18 years. I've interviewed hundreds of suspects. They all claim evidence was planted. They all insist they're innocent. You're going to need something better than the real criminal confessed to me in private with no witnesses. Maya felt the walls closing in again. Morrison was right without corroboration. Her testimony was worthless. She looked at Commander Reeves hoping for support, but the older woman's expression was anguished and helpless. Whatever Reeves had told FBI, it hadn't been enough to stop Maya's arrest. Then Blackburn spoke. Agent Morrison, Lieutenant Chen isn't the only person David Reeves approached today. He also sent messages to 3 other people attempting to recruit them into his network, now that Commander Cross's arrest has exposed part of his operation. Those messages were intercepted by Naval Intelligence 30 minutes ago. They referenced specific details that only someone inside the espionage operation would know. And they used the same manipulation techniques Chen described from her meeting. Morrison looked up sharply. What messages? I haven't been briefed on any intercepts. Because they just came through, Admiral Vance said, speaking for the first time. I authorized the interception under operational security protocols. General Blackburn is correct. We have documentation of David Reeves attempting to expand his network. That corroborates Lieutenant Chen's account that he's still actively operating. Morrison's expression shifted slightly, suspicion mixing with interest. I'll need to see those intercepts. Classified, Vance said flatly. You can see sanitized versions that protect sources and methods. But the existence of those communications supports Chen's testimony that Reeves met with her today and attempted recruitment. Attempted recruitment? Morrison looked at Maya. He tried to recruit you. Yes, ma'am. He offered to make the evidence against me disappear if I agreed to work for him instead of Guardian. He said I could either run, turn myself in, or become his asset. I refused all 3 options. Why didn't you mention that before? Because I was building context. You needed to understand his methodology before I explained his offer. Morrison studied Maya for a long moment. Then she looked at Commander Reeves. Did your husband ever try to recruit Guardian operatives before? Not that I'm aware of, Reeves said quietly. But I also wasn't aware he was running an espionage network, so my knowledge is clearly limited. If Maya says David tried to recruit her, I believe her. That's consistent with how he thinks. Identify talented people, offer them what they want, manipulate them into compromising positions. It's CIA tradecraft applied to domestic operations. Which is illegal, Morrison said. CIA has no domestic authority. If David Reeves is conducting intelligence operations inside the United States, that's multiple violations of federal law on top of espionage charges. Exactly, Blackburn said. Which is why you need Chen operational, not in custody. She's the only person who's met with Reeves face-to-face in the past 48 hours. She's the only one who can identify him in real time if he surfaces again. And she's your best asset for understanding how he thinks and where he'll go next. Morrison tapped her fingers on the folder. Maya could see the calculation happening: arrest a suspect based on circumstantial evidence that might be falsified or keep a potential asset available for ongoing investigation. All right, Morrison finally said. And finally, here's what's going to happen. Lieutenant Chen, you're not under arrest. Yet. But you're under FBI supervision. You don't leave this base without clearing it through me. You don't access any classified systems without an agent present. You don't communicate with anyone outside approved channels. You violate any of those conditions, the arrest warrant gets executed immediately. Clear? Yes, ma'am. Commander Reeves, same conditions apply to you. I still don't know if you're complicit or a victim, but until I do, you're on a very short leash. Morrison stood. Admiral Vance, I'll need those intercepts within the hour. General Blackburn, Lieutenant Chen stays with you or another designated escort at all times. Everyone else, this meeting is over. The FBI agents filed out. The JAG officer followed. Commander Reeves stood slowly, her eyes meeting Maya's. I'm sorry, Reeves said. For all of it. For recruiting you. For exposing you to this. For not seeing what David was doing. You couldn't have known, Maya said. He's too good at compartmentalization. That's not an excuse. I'm supposed to be the expert at identifying threats. My own husband was the threat, and I missed it completely. Reeves's voice cracked slightly. Guardian is finished, Maya. Even if I'm cleared, even if we dismantle David's entire network, the program can't survive this level of compromise. Congressional oversight will tear it apart. Everything we built is gone. Maybe that's not entirely bad, Maya said carefully. Maybe Guardian needed oversight. Maybe operating without accountability created the vulnerability David exploited. Reeves looked at her for a long moment. David said something similar in his note. That Guardian was dangerous because it had no checks, no balances. I thought he was just justifying betrayal, but maybe he was right. Maybe we became what we were fighting against, an intelligence operation accountable to no one. That's above my clearance level, ma'am. No, it's not. You've earned the right to question everything about this program. Reeves moved toward the door where FBI agents waited to escort her back to custody. When this is over, when you're cleared and David is caught, think carefully about what you want to do next. You don't have to stay in intelligence. You don't have to keep operating in shadows. You're 25 years old, Maya. You have time to build something different, something better. She left before Maya could respond. Vance Blackburn and Maya were alone in the conference room. The Admiral sat back in her chair, looking exhausted. That was close, she said. Morrison was 20 seconds from executing that warrant when I mentioned the intercepts. We bought you time, Chen, but not much. If David Reeves makes another move, and you're not instrumental in stopping him, FBI will decide you're more valuable as a defendant than as an asset. What do we know about his current location? Maya asked. Nothing. He's gone completely dark. No credit card usage, no phone activity, no digital footprint. Either he has resources we don't know about, or he's getting help from people who are still hidden in his network. Vance pulled up something on her tablet. But there's one piece of leverage we might have. David's mother lives in Carlsbad, about 40 minutes north of here. She's 86 and assisted living, requires regular visits from family for medical reasons. David's devoted to her visits every week without fail, according to facility records. You think he'll risk exposure to see his mother? Blackburn asked. I think he's been planning this exit for months, which means he's already said goodbye to everyone he cares about, except one person, his mother. He'll make contact, maybe not in person, but somehow. And when he does, we'll be ready. That's thin, Blackburn said, betting on sentiment from a man who destroyed his wife's career and framed multiple people for treason. It's what we have, Vance replied. Chen, I'm sending you and a team to the assisted living facility. Set up surveillance. If David shows you, identify him. FBI moves in for arrest. You get credit for the capture, which clears you from suspicion. And if he doesn't show, then we keep looking while FBI builds their case against you and Morrison makes the arrest anyway. There's no good option here, Lieutenant, just less bad ones. Maya nodded slowly. When do I leave? Now. Blackburn will provide tactical support. Senior Chief Hughes will lead the SEAL element. FBI will have agents staged nearby for the actual arrest. You're the identification asset. Stay back, stay safe, just point him out if he appears. Yes, ma'am. 2 hours later, Maya sat in an unmarked van across the street from Sunrise Gardens Assisted Living, watching the entrance through high-powered optics. Hughes and 2 other SEALs occupied positions around the facility's perimeter. FBI agents waited in vehicles 2 blocks away. Blackburn monitored communications from a command post back at base. The facility was quiet. Visitors came and went, adult children visiting aging parents, medical staff arriving for evening shifts, delivery drivers bringing supplies. Maya cataloged each person, comparing faces to the photographs she'd memorized of David Reeves. Nothing. Hour after hour of nothing. At 2100, Hughes's voice came through her earpiece. Chen, we have movement. Side entrance, northeast corner. Single male, approximately right age, wearing maintenance uniform. He's using a key card to access the staff entrance. Maya swung her optics toward the indicated position. She caught a glimpse of gray hair, weathered face, but the man kept his head down and moved quickly. Could be Reeves. Could be legitimate maintenance staff. Uncertain identification, Maya said. I need a better look. He's inside now, moving toward the resident wing where Reeves's mother lives. Chen, if that's him, we're running out of time. Maya made a decision. I'm going in. Negative. Blackburn's voice cut in over the command channel. Your observation only. Let FBI handle. Maya was already out of the van. She crossed the street, quickly entered through the main entrance, and signed in at the visitor's desk, using one of Rebecca Thornton's backup identities. The receptionist barely glanced at the ID before buzzing her through. The facility's interior was warmly lit, designed to feel residential rather than institutional. Maya moved quickly down the corridor toward the resident wing, following the route the maintenance worker had taken. Cameras tracked her movement. FBI would see this, would know she'd violated orders, but that didn't matter if she was right. She reached the corridor where David Reeves's mother lived, room 247. The door was slightly ajar. Maya approached, carefully listening. Voices. 2 people. One elderly and female, one younger and male. Have to go now, Mom. I'm sorry. I won't be able to visit for a while. David, what's wrong? You look terrible. Are you sick? No, Mom. Just work problems. But I'll be fine. I just needed to see you one more time before things get complicated. Maya pushed the door open. David Reeves stood beside his mother's bed, holding her hand. He looked up when Maya entered, his expression shifting from surprise to something like resignation. Lieutenant Chen, he said calmly, I wondered if they'd figure out I'd come here. You made it easy. Devoted son, regular visits, predictable behavior. Your tradecraft is exceptional, except when emotion is involved. The elderly woman in the bed looked confused. David? Who is this? Nobody, Mom. Just someone from work. I need to talk to her outside for a minute. Reeves squeezed his mother's hand. I love you. Remember that, okay, no matter what you hear about me in the next few weeks, remember that I love you, and I did what I thought was right. David, you're scaring me. It's fine, Mom. Everything's fine. Reeves stepped into the corridor and Maya moved to keep distance between them. He made no aggressive moves, just stood with his hands visible and empty. How many people do you have outside? He asked. Enough. Navy SEALs, FBI agents, local law enforcement. You're not leaving this facility except in custody. I know. I accepted that when I decided to come here. There are some things more important than escape. He glanced back at the room where his mother waited. She has maybe 6 months. Advanced heart disease. I couldn't disappear without saying goodbye. That's sentimental for someone who destroyed his wife's career. Sarah will survive. She's stronger than people think. My mother is 86 and dying. There's a difference. Reeves leaned against the wall, looking tired. So what happens now? You arrest me. FBI processes me. I spend the rest of my life in federal prison for crimes I believe were necessary. That's approximately accurate. And you think that's justice, prosecuting someone who tried to expose an unconstitutional intelligence program? I think you committed espionage and framed innocent people to cover your ideology. Whatever your intentions, your methods were criminal. Reeves smiled slightly. Spoken like someone who still believes in moral clarity. Give it 20 years, Lieutenant. See if you still think intelligence work has good guys and bad guys. Or if you realize it's just people making impossible choices with insufficient information. That's your justification. Impossible choices. No. My justification is that Guardian operated without oversight for 5 years, running operations that bypassed every legal and ethical safeguard our intelligence system is supposed to have. My methods were criminal. But Guardian's existence was also criminal. The difference is I'm getting prosecuted and they're getting congressional hearings. Hughes's voice came through Maya's earpiece. FBI's moving in 30 seconds. Maya pulled out her phone and activated the recording function. David Reeves, I'm placing you under citizen's arrest for espionage against the United States. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in federal court. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, I'm former CIA lieutenant. I know my rights. Reeves pushed off the wall and put his hands behind his back. But I appreciate the formality. It's the kind of thing Sarah would have trained you to do. Follow protocol even when it's unnecessary. Maintain procedure even when emotion is involved. FBI agents flooded the corridor. Agent Morrison appeared, weapon drawn, and took control of Reeves with practiced efficiency. Within 2 minutes, he was secured, processed, and being escorted toward federal custody. Before they took him away, Reeves looked back at Maya one last time. "You're good at this," he said. "Maybe too good. Be careful it doesn't consume you the way it consumed me and Sarah. Intelligence work eats people from the inside out. You're 25. You still have time to get out before it's too late." Then he was gone, and Maya stood in the corridor with Hughes Morrison and a half-dozen other agents processing the scene. Morrison holstered her weapon. "You violated orders by entering this facility." "Yes, ma'am." "You also just made the arrest that breaks this entire case. Reeves's confession on your recording combined with his presence at this location gives us everything we need for prosecution. Commander Reeves will be cleared. You'll be cleared. Guardian's compromised operatives will receive new identities and protection." Morrison's expression softened slightly. "Good work, Lieutenant. Reckless, but good." "Thank you, ma'am." After FBI cleared the scene, Maya found herself alone in the van with Hughes. The senior chief had been quiet during the entire arrest, just providing security and staying out of the way. Now he looked at her with an expression that was hard to read. "You knew he'd come here," Hughes said. "That's why you were so certain about surveillance at this location." "I assessed probability based on pattern analysis. He'd eliminated every other emotional connection except his mother. It was the most likely target." "That's not analysis. That's understanding. You put yourself in his head, figured out what he'd do, and positioned yourself to intercept. That's not intelligence work, Chen. That's profiling. That's how hunters think." Maya didn't respond. Hughes started the van's engine. "The general wants you back at base for debrief. Then you've got some decisions to make about your future. Word is, Guardian is being officially disbanded. Operatives are being reassigned or retired. You're young enough to choose something different if you want. What would you do, Senior Chief, if you were in my position?" Hughes considered that. "I'd ask myself why I joined in the first place. If it was to serve my country, there are lots of ways to do that. If it was because I liked the challenge, the problem-solving, the hunt, that's different. That's when intelligence work becomes something else. Something harder to walk away from." They drove in silence back to base. Maya watched the dark coastline passing by, thinking about everything that had happened in the past 48 hours. The demonstration that had exposed her. The investigation that had nearly destroyed her. The confrontation with both Cross and David Reeves. The realization that the program she'd served was being dismantled. Commander Reeves's words echoed, "You're 25 years old, Maya. You have time to build something different. Something better." But did she want something different? Or had 3 years of Guardian training changed her into someone who couldn't function outside intelligence work? The debrief at base took 4 hours. Maya walked Admiral Vance, General Blackburn, and FBI through every detail of the investigation, the arrests, and David Reeves's final confession. When it was finished, Vance dismissed everyone except Maya and Blackburn. "Lieutenant Chen," Vance began, "effective immediately, Guardian is suspended pending congressional review. That review will likely result in the program being dissolved or restructured with new oversight. You're being reassigned." "To where, ma'am?" "That's your choice. I'm offering you 3 options. First, return to standard intelligence analysis under Lieutenant Commander Morrison. Your Guardian service will be classified, but you'll receive full credit for breaking this espionage network. You'll be promoted to full lieutenant and fast-tracked for future advancement. Second, accept General Blackburn's offer to help build the Cognitive Warfare Training Program. 6 months temporary duty teaching operators how to think like intelligence analysts. Third, Vance glanced at Blackburn, who nodded. Third, accept assignment to Naval Special Warfare Development Group as their first permanent intelligence integration officer. You'd be embedded with SEAL teams providing real-time analysis during operations. It's dangerous, challenging, and completely different from anything you've done before. Maya absorbed the options. Safe intelligence work that played to her analytical strengths. Teaching that would share her knowledge but keep her away from operations. Or field deployment with the most elite special operations unit in the world. The DevGru position, Maya said. Is that because of what happened yesterday? The demonstration with General Blackburn? Partly, Blackburn admitted. But mostly because you've proven you can think under pressure, adapt to impossible situations, and make correct decisions when everything's going wrong. Those are the exact capabilities DevGru needs in an intelligence officer. Someone who won't freeze when operations go sideways. Someone who can handle themselves if things get kinetic. I'd be working with you indirectly. I'm building the training program. You'd be implementing the results in actual operations. We'd coordinate, but you'd have your own command structure and mission parameters. Maya thought about David Reeves's warning. Intelligence work eats people from the inside out. You still have time to get out. She thought about Commander Reeves's advice. You have time to build something different, something better. She thought about the past 3 years, the missions, the successes, the moments when she'd made a difference that nobody else could make. And she thought about the next 20 or 30 years, wondering what kind of officer and what kind of person she wanted to become. I'll take the DevGru position, she said, with one condition. Name it, Vance said. I want oversight, real oversight. Regular reports to Naval Intelligence Command, annual reviews by people outside the program, congressional briefings if requested. Everything that Guardian didn't have. Because David Reeves was right about one thing, programs without accountability create vulnerabilities. I won't be part of that again. Vance and Blackburn exchanged a look. Then Vance nodded. Agreed. You'll have oversight, accountability, and review processes. The Navy learned from Guardian's mistakes. We're not repeating them. She extended her hand. Welcome to Development Group, Lieutenant Chen. You start in 2 weeks. Use the time to get your affairs in order. After that, you belong to the teams. Maya shook her hand, then Blackburn's. As she left the office, she felt something settle inside her. Not certainty, but purpose. She'd chosen her path, knowing the risks, understanding the costs, accepting the reality that intelligence work would change her in ways she couldn't predict. But she'd chosen it on her own terms, with her own conditions, building something better than what had come before. 6 months later, Maya stood in a ready room aboard the USS Mitchell, the destroyer, named after Colonel Frank Mitchell, the man who'd started it all by recognizing that electronic warfare would define modern combat. She was briefing a SEAL team on their mission intelligence, walking them through threat assessments and operational parameters with the same precision she'd once used to analyze compromised missions. But now she wasn't analyzing from safety. She was going with them. The team commander, a weathered lieutenant commander named Torres, listened carefully to her brief before asking, "Lieutenant Chen, you sure you're ready for this? It's one thing to break spies at a coffee shop. It's different when bullets start flying." Maya thought about the amphitheater where she'd taken down a general, the secure room where she'd escaped through ventilation ducts, the confrontation with David Reeves where one wrong word could have ended everything, the arrest in an assisted living facility that could have turned violent at any moment. "I'm ready," she said simply. Torres nodded. "Then let's go to work." The operation was successful. No casualties. Objectives achieved. Intelligence gathered that would prevent 3 separate terrorist attacks over the following months. Maya performed exactly as trained, calm under pressure, adaptive to changing situations, effective when everything went wrong. When they returned to base, Torres found her in the debriefing room. "Chen, that was solid work out there. You kept your head when most people would have panicked. You made calls that saved lives. The team wants you to know they trust you." He paused. "That demonstration 6 months ago with General Blackburn, everyone's seen the video. Some people thought you got lucky. Some thought you were showing off. Now we know what you really are, someone who's prepared for everything, who stays calm when chaos happens, who does the job without needing recognition." "I'm just doing what I was trained to do, sir." "No, you're doing what you chose to do. There's a difference. Guardian trained you. But you decided to use that training to help operators instead of just collecting intelligence from safety. That choice matters." A year later, Maya received notification that Commander Sarah Reeves had been fully exonerated and offered reinstatement to active duty. She declined, citing personal reasons, and accepted a teaching position at the National Defense University, where she developed new curriculum on intelligence ethics and accountability. David Reeves was convicted on 18 counts of espionage and sentenced to 45 years in federal prison. His appeals were denied. He was 63 years old when sentenced, which meant he would spend the rest of his life in custody. Commander Nathan Cross received 35 years. The two logistics officers and communications technician received sentences ranging from 15 to 25 years. The network was completely dismantled. The congressional hearings on Guardian resulted in the program being restructured under new oversight. Former operatives were offered positions in the reform program or reassignment to other intelligence billets. Most chose reassignment. Some retired. A few, like Maya, found new ways to serve. General Marcus Blackburn's cognitive warfare training program became mandatory for all officers on command track. His methodology, combining traditional warrior mindset with modern intelligence analysis, was adopted throughout naval special warfare. The program's success was measured not in medals or promotions, but in operations that succeeded because someone thought 3 steps ahead. 2 years after the initial demonstration, Blackburn asked Maya to help him teach a class of new SEAL candidates. She agreed and found herself standing in the same amphitheater where everything had started. The candidates filed in young and confident and certain they understood what warfare required. Blackburn let them settle, then gestured to Maya. "This is Lieutenant Chen," he told them. "2 years ago, she took me down in this exact location in approximately 4 seconds. Some of you have seen the video. Some of you think you know what happened. You're all wrong about what that moment meant." The candidates leaned forward, interested now. "What happened here wasn't about combat skills," Blackburn continued. "It was about assumptions. I assumed Lieutenant Chen was weak because she didn't fit my expectations. I assumed her appearance told me everything I needed to know about her capabilities. I assumed the warrior I was looking for would look like warriors I'd known before. I was wrong about everything." He gestured to Maya. "Tell them what you told me after the arrest of David Reeves." Maya stepped forward. "I told General Blackburn that the most dangerous opponent is the one you never see coming. The most devastating attack is the one that changes how you think instead of where you stand. Modern warfare isn't about being the strongest or the fastest. It's about being the smartest, the most adaptive, the most willing to question everything you think you know." She looked out at the candidates, seeing younger versions of the operators she now worked with, remembering when she'd been just as young and uncertain. "You're being trained to be warriors. That's important. But you're also being trained to be thinkers, to question assumptions, to recognize threats that don't look like threats, to understand that the person who seems weakest might be your most valuable asset," she paused, "or your most dangerous enemy." Blackburn stepped forward again. 2 years ago, Lieutenant Chen taught me that lesson in the most humiliating way possible. But she taught me. And because I learned, I'm a better officer, a better trainer, and a better judge of talent. That's what this program is about: learning from mistakes, adapting to reality, building something better than what came before. The class ended with questions, discussions, debates about modern warfare and intelligence integration. When the candidates finally left, Blackburn and Maya stood alone in the amphitheater. "You think they got it?" Blackburn asked. "Some did. Some will need to learn the hard way. That's how training works." "Yeah." Blackburn looked around the space. "You know, I've been meaning to say something to you for 2 years. Never found the right moment, but standing here where it all started seems appropriate. Sir, thank you for putting me on my ass in front of half the Pacific Fleet, for forcing me to confront prejudices I didn't know I had, for showing me that adaptation isn't weakness, it's survival." He extended his hand. "You made me better, Lieutenant. That's the highest compliment one officer can give another." Maya shook his hand. "You made me better too, sir. You taught me that respect has to be earned through competence, not demanded through rank. You taught me that even people who start as enemies can become allies if they're willing to learn. You taught me that mistakes only destroy you if you refuse to grow from them." They stood there, 2 officers who'd started as adversaries and become something else, not quite friends, but comrades in the truest sense. People who'd fought the same battles, learned the same lessons, and committed to building something better. As Maya left the amphitheater, she thought about the journey that had brought her here. The Olympic training that taught her discipline. The Guardian recruitment that taught her intelligence work. The investigation that taught her resilience. The demonstration that taught her courage. And the years since that had taught her how to transform conflict into progress. She was 27 now. Still young, still learning, still discovering what kind of officer and person she wanted to become. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She would never stop questioning, never stop adapting, never stop fighting for the kind of military and intelligence service that earned respect through competence rather than demanding it through authority. The weak little girl they'd mocked had become the officer they needed, not despite her appearance, but because she'd learned to turn underestimation into advantage, assumptions into weaknesses, and prejudice into opportunity. The mark on Blackburn's face had faded years ago, but the lesson remained permanent.